Hello and welcome to a special E3 Roundup edition of the Tetracast. It's been 2 weeks since you've heard from us, so we have quite the task in front of us here today. My name is Brian Vitale. I've got the usual crew here to slug it out with me. We've got George Foster.
Hello, everyone.
Josh Torres.
You made a mistake. Welcome to the longest day of our lives.
Adam Vitale.
Hey, guys.
And James Galizio.
No, I will not shut up about Fuga Melodies of Steel.
Yeah, one of the many things we have to talk about today. And we also have Chow Min Woo.
Hello, guys.
So last week, we took the week off in anticipation of all of the E3 events, which in some ways was kind of a good move because we did have a few things going on at the time we were where we would normally record. But a lot of the stuff we had to talk about didn't start really rolling in until like the day after and then the following subsequent week leading up until this podcast. So where we've ended up is now we have 2 weeks worth of stuff to talk about, with one of those weeks being jam-packed with all of the different streaming events and conference type digital streams. So this is the longest scoping of our podcast that we've had. So we're going to do things ever so slightly differently just to try to make it manageable and just to try to make it so that we're not mortgaging a whole bunch of our time on this. So what we're going to do is that normally for the Tetracast, we try to kind of organize the topics such that the key most impactful news of the week ends up at the top, where we then filter out with like sales updates and kind of like port announcements towards the bottom. It's kind of hard to filter that through what we have going on this week. So we're going to basically just dial back our mental clocks 2 weeks and just kind of go through everything that happened more or less chronologically.
It turns out everyone had an RPG to show, unfortunately.
Yeah, RPGs are also so nebulously defined that there's so much stuff that we could incorporate that we had to kind of like pick our battles. So there's still a ton to talk about, but there's also a few games that you could argue, and not even argue, that we did cover on the site that we're just not going to have time to go into. We're not going to talk about what we've been playing just for the sake of time. But so yeah, the format will be a little different. And we're also going to talk about, like, as we go into the different publishers and what they showed, like what we thought of the event, maybe just some general observations about the format, or about the presentation, that sort of stuff. So we'll just kind of see where the conversation leads us, exactly what we thought about all the announcements, what were our individual highlights, what are our collective highlights, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right, enough stalling. I hope you have your drink of choice and are comfortable, because here we go. So leading up into E3, dial back your mental state to 2 weeks ago before any
E3 rolled when it was nice and cozy.
So one of the major topics of our podcast before everything of the last 2 weeks was the announcement of Monark. This was a RPG that had been teased that had creators of the original SMT games on board for this mysterious new game. Now, right ahead of E3, we got all the details that they had teased for that game. First, we had the announcement of a Japanese trailer, followed by NIS America's announcement of localization plans for Monark. Then throughout the week, we also did have some gameplay streams from the developers, along with a bunch of character bios, a bunch of the premises. So I don't have a lot of experience with either the SMT series or the previous work of the developer here, FuRyu. So maybe I'll hand it off to Adam. Like, what did you see from what they showed of all the different marketing for Monark that you think is worth getting excited about, or just what were your initial takeaways?
FuRyu is the publisher, right?
Yeah, the developer is Landcars.
Okay.
Okay.
So Landcars, they actually did the first couple of Etrian Odyssey games for Atlas. I believe Atlas is I think Atlas has basically poached, certain members from that team, and now they just do Etrian Odyssey internally. That's assuming they're still doing Etrian Odyssey in the future here. So Landcars did the first few Etrian Odyssey games, and they also did Lost Dimension like 5 years ago or 6 years ago or whenever it was. So that's the developer we're talking about. The publisher is FuRyu, and FuRyu has done what they've done in the last few games they've worked on is they've basically have advertised their games as sort of bringing back, established creators, Japanese creators from previous series, to have them contribute to a new title. Like, for example, they put out The Alliance Alive, which originally released on 3DS and then was ported to more platforms, where they basically touted the Suikoden creator was doing the writing for that. And so, like, this Monarch game kind of fits that same mold, where they're, we're bringing back these SMT, these really classic SMT guys, like pre-3, pre-Nocturne SMT people to do some of the writing and some of the music. Now, to be clear, FuRyu did put out a kind of a list of the key developers, the key people behind the game. And the SMT people are actually not like the direct writers, but they're like the supervisor writers. So, like, how much are they actually contributing? We don't
they're
know.
really like pushing that as like a key part of their marketing. Like the teaser website, literally, like as you scroll down, showed all these names with like that were like partially obscured. Like they're really like putting it out on the front as like really like the hook, as like this is why you should care.
Because they did the same thing. They did the Caligula effect. It was like, we have Persona 2's writer on here. That's like, cool, I guess. Yeah, awesome. And then Caligula effect came out. It's like, oh, okay, cool.
By the way, the Caligula 2 does not have the Persona 2 writer.
Oh, yes, that's right.
But yeah, that falls into what I was saying, that like FuRyu has done this before, and it is sort of like, I'm sure they're contributing something, but it is largely a part of it is marketing, right?
I had this weird feeling, right? Because as we're mentioning, FuRyu has become like kind of this weird sort of hub or haven for like old school Japanese developers. Like it kind of reminds you of that Kickstarter era of like when Inafune went to Kickstarter, or when Suikoden creators went to Kickstarter. It's like these big Japanese, like even Igarashi, who turned to crowdfunding, and like Kickstarter for like a good chunk of time like became some sort of like, okay, you've been out of the game for a while, but if you really want to push what you have next, let's turn to crowdfunding for it to pitch to publishers and whatnot.
And Bloodstain turned out pretty good, at least.
Yeah, it's true.
So anyways, the game is set in a high school, and it's got some occult elements to it. So people immediately looked at Persona as inspiration. And of course, coming from classic SMT guys, while they were kind of there almost before the Persona spin-off era, they, obviously that there's a connection there. So the game itself, we saw a long trailer. It's like a tactical RPG in a way, where you have like this positioning. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like a grid, and you have like 5 different characters that are like your main cast, and you have your main character, and you have 4. They're called like buddies, at least in the Japanese press release. I'm not sure if NIS America is calling them the same thing, but your buddies are basically like, they're kind of like your routes in an SMP game, where you sort of pick one and you kind of go along their route. So there's sort of this multiple branching paths thing. And then there's other characters as well. I'm not quite sure if they are playable. They're just not main, like they're not a buddy. But you kind of have the squad of characters. People have pointed out that there's sort of like this chess motif, where like one of the characters has like a bishop type outfit, one of them's like a knight and a queen, and so on. So that fits the tactical style. It's got like, an anime-esque cel-shaded art style. It's not like super high, fidelity or production value, but FuRyu, it's, they're more like a middle level developer compared to like Atlas or somebody like that, or Square Enix. It's combat. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just saying that when we're talking about the premise and whatnot, when they're like releasing interviews about this game too, The creators really wanted to make like a modern day Shin Megami Tensei If game, and
Oh yeah.
Shin Megami Tensei If was set in a high school. That actually became the basis of the Persona games moving forward. And just like this game in Shin Megami Tensei If, you had like these friends, and they all represented like different routes and endings you could go to in that game. And this same in Monarch, they're aping the same thing of like, hey, you have these different like members to your party, and each of one of them like represents like a certain route that you can follow, essentially. So they're really touting that like this game has multiple endings, and you like there'll be like it encourages New Game Plus for you to like explore these other routes. So like the different people represent different things should you go follow down their path. Like I think there's even like one of the features of this game is like you can skip like the what in visual novels you would call like the common route, where like there's like a central story and then there's like a branching path or split. And then there's
that makes sense. So you don't have if you to entice people to play the other route. So like you don't have to do that common route each time.
Yeah.
You can just skip to the branching point.
You know what that really reminds me of, though? It actually reminds me of the game Stellar Deuce from Atlas.
Aladeus, yeah.
Yeah, it looks more like that than the Shin Megami Tensei game. That's what I'm getting from.
You mean because that's a tactical RPG, right?
Yeah, but that thing also has the branching path, and you got all these other things. Like they also have like, what is it, spirits? Like they learn how to manipulate spirits over the story.
I think so. I remember from that story is like there's miasma involved in the story.
Yeah, I don't quite remember what the premise was, but like there's this in Monarch. Yeah, there's like this evil miasma and other like strange phenomena that have started appearing, and so like they haven't really gone much more into it than that. But
yeah, about the battle system you're mentioning.
It just looks like it's tactical, kind of turn-based, moving characters on a grid. It does look maybe a little bit rough to me. It
looks
not high budget.
Yeah, for sure. It looks better at first than the Caligula effect, at least. I mean, it's different developers, same publisher, but I want to remain hopeful about this game because I really like what they're trying to do. I really dig the character designs of this game. I think it particularly nails that. But I hope this turns out well. I wanna cheer for it. They released like a some music sampler with the announcement, and those tracks sound killer. Like it's like evoking a very classic Megami Tensei era, but with modern instruments. And it's pretty neat. And I think this is coming October in Japan, and then early next year for the West.
So the release details for the first Japanese PV, it's October 14th, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and Switch. And then with the Nice America release, it said early 2022. And then Adam, you also have it marked on here that's going to release on PC. Did that show up with the Nice America announcement?
Yes.
Okay. So PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Nintendo Switch, October 14th in Japan, and then early 2022 for the West, also on PC. So
crossing my fingers.
Yep. And then the second
the Alliance Alive was very okay.
Yeah. The second of the two announcements that were leading into E3, and this one was kind of one that had been like half confirmed, half speculated for a while. This was Amazon Game Studios partnering with Smilegate to publish or partially publish Lost Ark in North America and Europe later this summer. This had originally shown up all the way back in 2018 when they announced plans for a North American release. And that's around when this released originally in Korea. But now it's finally confirmed. I guess some more publishing agreement details came out last August. But now finally, like all the rumors or plans or speculations have been formally announced. You can pre-order this like on Steam and on the official website. They're planning to release later this summer. And it seems like that kind of ends up being like a theme of the last couple weeks or months. We have a lot of like MMO, either new MMOs coming out or refreshed MMOs, or MMOs that have been held to other markets are finally being like localized. So what do we think of what do we think about when we see this trailer for Lost Ark?
First of all, it was like all but confirmed. before, because last
Right.
year, the developer behind Lost Ark is the Korean developer known as Smilegate. And last year, Amazon like officially announced with the press release and everything, we are going to be publishing a game, an MMORPG from Smilegate. And Smilegate had like one MMORPG, so it didn't take Sherlock Holmes to deduce that one.
Well, yeah, that's what I was trying to get at. Like, we kind of knew
right.
about this, but now it's like formal.
Yeah.
I played their mobile game, Epic 7, so.
Oh yeah, same publisher.
I hear a lot of really, really great things from friends who've played Lost Ark. I think I forgot if there's like a client out there. It's like the Russian release, but there's like a fan made like English patch. It's like for menus only or whatever. I forgot how that is. But the people who really went out there to go try it out, and then they played it a lot. They're like, this is really good, and then they all plan on like going to the Western release when it comes out. I'm excited. Like it's sort of like a MMO Diablo-esque game, but it's very flashy, and it seems like the systems are kind of well thought out. I do hear there's like in notorious Korean MMO fashion, I do hear there's quite a grind involved in it. But you know what? My young me, that I was built for that. I played a lot of Korean MMOs back in the day. Cabal, Atlantica Online. Like
back when we had all had more time.
Yeah,
I don't think I worry about the grind. I usually worry about the end game where it's too much pay to win. That's usually the mindset of most MMOs.
I wonder how it is for this game, because I hear it's okay. Like that, especially like when you go for it.
I had a chance to meet with the developers in a group, like kind of like a panel setting, and it is going to be a free-to-play game. So I don't know like how the monetization is overseas or whatnot, but yeah, it is free to play, and there are going to be like founders packs. You don't have to buy one, but you can buy like a pack to pre-order it to get bonus stuff, and then there was going to be some sort of cosmetics or utility store that you can get. So
yeah, I mean, it seems like it's either probably going to be microtransactions, probably, and like a premium. What do you call it? Like a premium service that you can like opt into, like ESO or Phantasy Star.
Yeah, I want to try it out. I've heard too many good things about it to not try it out.
Yeah, it is a bit weird though that you can like if you go to their website, it talks about like pre-ordering this, but like we don't have a date yet. I think they just have plans for summer for a beta test, but that's kind of it. But
I think they had like a closed beta test earlier when you pre-order like the expensive edition, right, on Steam or whatever. You get like, access.
There's like different tiers, and I haven't looked into exactly what tier gets you what, but I wouldn't be surprised. It seems pretty popular. Well, it's always been around, but it seems extra popular this year for some reason to get like early access for pre-ordering, whether it's a single player or an online game. So one thing that is kind of interesting is that I don't know if this is Amazon money being swung around, but it will have written and spoken dialogue in English, French, German, and Spanish, like written and spoken. So that seems pretty incredible to me.
Amazon finally have a hit on their hands.
And they'll finally have their big game, and they just had to publish Smilegate's property to do it. But I could easily see myself.
There's a lot of MMOs released this year, though. It's like they're going with Aeon Classic from NCSoft. We got Bless being ported to other things. It's like, I don't know. It feels like the MMOs market's coming back for a revival.
Yeah, that's kind of what I mentioned. I didn't specifically mention those two titles, but yeah, Aeon's getting a classic version in the vein of World of Warcraft, and then Bless is coming to PC again, I guess. Yeah, because Bless Online was on PC, and then Bless Unleashed was like not the same game on consoles, and now that's coming back to PC. It's weird.
Yeah, it's weird. But even like some people may say that like, hey, a PSO2 New Genesis counts as a MMO, and like that came out. And also, this is the year FF11, and that's coming back too.
And that's all I really had like for pre-E3 big announcements, because following the announcement of the Lost Ark MMO on June 10th, last Saturday, we have June 10th, that wasn't last Saturday, that was last Thursday. Following that, we had the Summer Game Fest. This is Jeff Keighley's alternative E3 kickoff summer thing.
E3's rival.
Yeah, they're the Scorpion to their Sub-Zero or something. I don't know. So Summer Games Fest, which is like the summer version of from the same like producing team as the Game Awards, was kind of like the big kickoff of the week. And we weren't exactly quite sure what to expect going into it. So let's just kind of go through what eventually came out of it. One of the bigger surprises that came out of it, very unexpected, I don't think anyone predicted, was Metal Slug Tactics. So this is something that it's like, wait, what? This looks like Metal Slug. Wait, what? This doesn't look like how Metal Slug plays. It's a tactical, like almost tactical RPG, tactical game.
Yeah, it is.
And we'll be comparing this to another tactical game that was announced the week after. But I thought that this was kind of like a surprise highlight of the show, mainly because it was so unexpected. The show did have some other big hitters that we maybe thought about going in. But what did you think about what we saw at a Metal Slug Tactics?
It looks great. Like, it looks absolutely fantastic. But, and I hate bringing this up, but I feel terrible that I'm not going to be able to support it in good conscience, considering the current situation with SNK.
I guess I don't know the context there.
Well, they're owned by Saudi Arabia.
They're owned by the Saudi Arabian prince that was behind the Khashoggi murder.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate part. Like, I mean, the SNK wasn't involved in that, but unfortunately, that's the current situation for them. But I mean, as for the game itself, I'm really excited to, play it. I was very impressed with what I saw. The pixels, I was very surprised at like how well those, like the Metal Slug art style, the pixel art, how well it worked for that type of game. I didn't think you could do that. And it's something so out of left field. It kind of reminds me of like when they decided to like make Metroid an FPS in Metroid Prime. It's such a weird genre shift that like I want to root for this game. And obviously it has the SNK license, but SNK is not developing. It's the publisher is .mu, and the developer is the Cure Studios. So it has an SNK license, but not developed by them.
It reminds me sort of when like Yakuza went to be an RPG. It's like, that's so crazy, it might work. And like I used to love Metal Slug growing up, but if there's any game that's going to make me get into like a tactical game, like I say, I like my gimmicks. This is enough of a gimmick. I might be in for this one.
Yeah, it looks amazing, and like besides the game itself, it looks great. Like I'm really surprised at how well they managed to like translate the original like pixel art designs into this new style. While it still feels like Metal Slug, it feels like the 2D Metal Slug that I grew up playing in the arcades. It's like, there's two things that are surprising about this. The fact they're even making a tactical spinoff, because like nobody thought that would even be a thing. Like I don't think anyone thought, it would be a great like Metal Slug spinoff, a tactics game. But not just that, but the fact that the pixel art looks like a Neo Geo game still.
Right, they didn't like update it to look like they didn't like try to like reinvent it, like this is what it would look like with a modern sensibility. No, it seems like they were really faithful to the original look.
So the weird thing is like the Metal Slug Tactics concept has like existed before. I think it was like a smartphone only game. Like there's like a smartphone game out there that is like called Metal Slug Tactics. So they've dabbled with the idea before. I don't think this game in particular is anything like related to that like original game, but like the concept has existed before. I don't know if it has like
Metal Slug Attack, maybe. I'm looking at like the different mobile market games.
Yeah, maybe I forgot what it was called exactly, but yeah, I like borrows elements from that because in this trailer, like there's definitely like follow attacks or sync up attacks. So like you do an attack with a person, and then like another person will follow up that specific attack through a sync attack and whatnot. It's man.
By the way, Adam, on the Steam page for this, it says a dynamic tactical RPG. So we should cover this. There you go. If you want to cover this for our site, it's in our purview. That's why we're talking about it here.
It's not on consoles though, is it? It was just a Steam thing, wasn't it?
I
I
don't
think
they
it
announced
was
platforms,
they
maybe?
they didn't announce platforms. It has a Steam page. And this might be one of those things where it shows up on PC first and then gets the Switch
Oh.
port like 6 months
Oh.
later. But yeah, they
Yeah.
didn't really like formally announce anything. And then another small but surprising announcement early on in the Summer Game Fest kickoff show was a sequel to Salt and Sanctuary called Salt and Sacrifice. So this is like a kind of a 2D, also kind of like a retrofitted style look, very like gothic horror. Pardon me, Dark Soulsian, like sort of not in terms of gameplay, but in terms of just like what it evokes in its like outward style. So this is kind of weird because when this game was first like being like during the trailer, you could kind of see like the common DNA between this and Salt and Sacrifice, but it's like, is this a sequel to it? It wasn't quite sure because they talked about like how it's about being a mage hunter, and like that's the premise of the game, and it looks a little bit different. But then at the end, they revealed the title Salt and Sacrifice, and like, oh, it is in like the same series of games. So coming 2022 for PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and then also listed for PC. So what do we think about Salt and Sacrifice?
I think it's been a long time since Salt and Sanctuary. Like when you think about when that was like released, a lot of Salt and Sanctuary's like talk throughout that the mainstream at the time was like, oh, this is like a Dark Souls, like, you know, and it's like it was very novel for that, where it took like very similar systems from Dark Souls, but then presented like the 2D landscape, and like they have a very striking art style. I'm not always like the biggest fan of like Salt and Sanctuary's look when it comes to like character models and movement, but I thought the game was really fun. Like I enjoyed Salt and Sanctuary quite a lot. So seeing, you know, Salt and Sacrifice being announced, I'm very excited to check it out. It looks a lot more refined on that engine and whatnot, and you know, good for them. Good for them.
Yeah,
really
I know what you mean by like the movement. It almost looks like they have like that puppetry marionette kind of style where they only move at like their joints. It's it's hard to explain without like looking at the trailer, but it's kind of an acquired taste, I suppose.
Yeah, and they seem to be really going all out with the scope here. I forgot if the first one had local co-op with 2 players.
I think it did.
I think it did, but I don't think it was online. And this will have like drop in, drop out online for this one. And then they're talking about like joining like multiplayer factions, and like there's like a whole sort of like this seems to be they're really taking in like the concepts from the first game and like really building it out.
Well, here's a
lot more.
paragraph from the press release. Like Salt and Sanctuary, the first game, had co-op that was intentionally obscured as rudimentary as it comes, local only, same screen. Because Salt and Sacrifice is being built from the ground up as a multiplayer game, co-op is much more intentional. There's a full co-op mode playable online and locally. You can progress through the entire campaign together. So
That's sounds amazing. You know, I want to play this with friends.
mm-hmm. Then the later 2 announcements from Summer Game Fest, I think these were kind of expected, or maybe more so than the first 2. We did get a trailer for Tales of Arise, and this was showing off the full playable cast, at least at what they're marketing as the full playable cast. We were introduced to Dohalim and Kisara, who are the Dohalim fights with a rod or a polearm, and then Kisara is like a paladin that uses a mace and shield. We got a new trailer for Tales of Arise and a bunch of new key art. We got the Western box art eventually from the drop from the press release. So kind of like the final kickoff of marketing for Tales of Arise that's coming out in September. So and then after this trailer, we actually did get the opportunity to put up a preview for this game. So I guess I'll hand this off to the person who was able to do that for us. So George, Tales expert.
Hello.
What do you think? What do you think about Tales of Arise?
So, as the designated Tales expert, jokes. I've never played them. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. It's not like the Scarlet Nexus preview where I had like 4 hours with that, so I got to taste like a really like a pretty decent bit of what I was getting into. Like it was 25 minutes tops. I think it was like 2 areas. The focus was very much on combat and just getting used to like how the characters control. There wasn't really any story to it. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. Like, unfortunately, I don't know whether it's just me being like really dense, but I had to do her keyboard and mouse when I was playing. Like, I had my gamepad set up, but it was not accepting it. I was like, oh god.
It
And,
must be pretty hard to play a Tales game with a keyboard.
Dude, that sounds sick.
it was hard as heck. Like, every time I was doing a combo, I was like, yeah, I'm awesome. And then I hit the pause button and I go, oh, why? What am I doing?
Good thing you didn't put on a video, huh? I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Oh god, that would have gone badly. But then I got used to it a bit. I ran around the like field area, just like fighting a bit. Cause I was like, right, I want to talk about this and like get used to the combat, and not to be like, I hate this because I don't know how to do keyboard and mouse, which I wouldn't have said anyway because that's silly. But then I did get used to it, and yeah, like it's like really good. And when I can finally like perfect dodge and like actually play it properly, like I think I will really really enjoy it. And I also quite liked. I only got like a really small taste of this, but there was a good bit of like field dialogues as I was running around or like picking items up. You get like little chats between the characters. I was given like the full party for the demo, but they clearly weren't meant to be there. Like in cutscenes, it was just the two main characters. But they'd like still the whole party would talk as you're running around. And again, it's
sorry, Joe. Are they interacting like the skit system from the Tales game?
He doesn't know the skit system. He's never played Tales.
Shrug.
Okay. In the Tales games, they
interacting.
get to interact each other, and they'll just talk like random off-topic stuff.
Yeah, it was basically that. It's like any. The first thing that jumps to my mind is Final Fantasy 15, just because that's one of my favorites. But like they'll just chat about stuff. It's usually reactionary, but like sometimes it's just not. Like it's talking about combat styles. And they're just joking around, and like it's quite wholesome. Like I don't know if the story's gonna get super dark and deep. I don't know much about Tales, so like maybe not.
Yeah, I was looking at the other previews for this game too, like to see like kind of get a better understanding of like where they're going with this. And I think to address Chao's mention of like the skit system. The skit system is basically when you're in previous Tales games when you're going around like the world. Sometimes you'll have like a little button problem that says, "Oh, there's like a certain topic like people want to talk about." Like, say,
like Yakuza.
Yeah, exactly. So,
exactly.
Yeah, but like in Tales games, like you would open it and then it would like pop up, like it would like freeze the game, and then like it would pop up like portraits, like anime portraits, the characters like speaking with each other on like a certain topic. So I'm wondering if it's like how you mentioned, George, like with Yakuza 7.
I just want to highlight how like backwards that is. Like we have to compare Tales skits to Yakuza 7's newly introduced skit analog.
I love George. This is why I love speaking with George about this when he's like new to a game, because I have to reverse my thinking on how to make comparisons. It's so good.
That's us on our toes.
It's very much just natural field dialogue. There's no like button prompt for it.
Okay.
It's much more like modernized, streamlined, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I wondered
that. And then the demo ended with like just a big boss fight, and then that was it. But I came away thinking like I was already pretty interested in this, but now like I'm definitely interested in this.
Every time I see battles in this game, I'm like, I get so excited. Like it feels so much more fluid and like energetic and more busy than like Berseria. Like because and Berseria like it felt so restricted because like there was a system in that game where if you want to do special attacks, you'd like fill up like these gauges, but every time like you got hit, you would like lose like one of those. So like if you were getting punished by like if you were bad at the game or bad at the battle system or just bad at like not taking
or just struggling on a specific fight or whatever,
you felt restricted. It's like, oh man, like I feel like I can't do anything because I keep getting hit. But in this one, like it feels more versatile. I mean, you see like those action, like I don't know exactly how like the inner workings of how Arise's battle system works, but it feels like the bar to do actions like special attacks fills up so much more quickly, and you're just like way more incentivized to just style on enemies.
Just to clarify as well, and this was sort of the case with Scarlet Nexus, but I think that one turns out a little better because that's like a new IP. But RPG site isn't just like, oh, let's just chuck George or like whatever. Let's have him come back and he won't know what we're on about. Like sometimes when they hold these demos, they stream them through specific areas, like different servers, which I sound like an ape trying to describe anyway. Like, oh yeah, servers. But in most cases with Bandai Namco, it's like Europe, so I work best for them, even if I'm like, what is a Tales?
I can't wait till we have the opportunity to do like this really like grognard technical game. We're like, George, you're up. Because it's based in Europe.
Yeah, they're gonna do. It's like, oh yeah, we're doing this Labyrinth of Yomi preview only for Europe. It's like, all right, George, time to go play Labyrinth of Yomi for us. Good luck.
I don't even know what that is. I can't laugh.
Oh man,
But
when's
it
the
was
George
good.
Dungeon RPG arc happening?
Oh man.
Oh no.
But yeah, that sounds really cool, George. I'm really excited for this Tales game. I'm really looking forward to it. It sounds so promising.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, and like Brian mentioned earlier, we got a look at Kisara and Dohalim, and they like the trailer. They look sick as fuck. Like especially the pole arm that the Dohalim uses. It like the animations for that looks really really cool. And his design kind of reminds me a bit of Arjuna from Fate Grand Order, and I got a kick out of that. But you know,
when we
design is weird.
No, yeah. When we shared the art and the trailer for like these two characters, we got like equal billing of people going, "Oh no, they're hot!" like for both of them. So it's a good looking game full of good looking people. I'll put it like that. And it's actually this sounds really shallow, but it's kind of nice to see a Tales game where you can like appreciate that, because up until Berseria, they looked good in spurts, and they always had like the good like anime openings from what's that studio that does them?
UFO Table.
Yeah. But they're like the Berseria like environments were always really bland, and like you could tell that they were just like churning them out, and they were like reusing. It's nice to feel like that this game has been in the oven for a while with some backing. And I know that's really shallow, and it doesn't really like. And then I don't know.
No, I get it. Like it because you know, especially when you're thinking about like I like Zillia 1 and Zillia 2, but when you think about the lineage of like when the Tales series went to HD, Zillia 1, Zillia 2, then yeah, I think right after that it's like
Zisteria, Berseria.
Zisteria, because you have the Graces F port from the Wii, but that's it's still a Wii port, and then like Zisteria, and then Berseria was like, okay, like I get that a lot of people like Berseria, but for me, like you're saying, like when it comes to like environments and especially dungeon design, that game, it made me realize how much I really need an RPG game environment to really like be energetic and full of life, and especially dungeon art design as well. If it's very bland and straight hallways always, and there's nothing really interesting to look at, like I lose interest very fast, no matter how well the characters play off of each other.
I don't remember, this is my memory playing tricks on me, or just what stuck with me, but I remember like Berseria dungeons being like wide corridors full of like 90-degree angles, like everything's just like a grid, and like just with like bare walls and like enemies trotting about.
Well, I don't think you
plus
ever
a bunch
play
of
a Tales
field
game with a
areas.
good dungeon design, really.
Well,
Symphonia.
I hope I like the
What's up?
puzzle lead type dungeons in Symphonia, even if
Some of them go overboard, but I think overall Symphonia is the best Tales game with dungeons, even if some of them are a little bit
having
overboard.
shadow dudes chase after you.
Yeah,
like, do
that
whatever
one is
they
more
do.
just a control thing. Anyways, George mentioned this in his preview. I don't think he mentioned it here. So the game doesn't actually have like the cell shaded style for characters, not quite. Like Scarlet Nexus is coming out soon. That is clearly like cell shaded anime style, but this game it more has like characters have a little bit of like it's like a mix between cell shading and a little bit of like a patterned like artwork, like watercolor type design, and it's also especially apparent in like the backgrounds. It looks like a painting, so it's got a little bit of a different flavor to it. It still is very like anime inspired, but it's got some cool touches.
When I think of cell shading, I think of deliberately trying to make your 3D models look like 2D artwork, and that's not quite what they're doing here.
Right.
Well, on the website, because I looked it up, because I was like, wow, this, like, I can't tell if I'm just not looking at it right, but this looks like a mix of like watercolor and like sort of cell shading. And I looked it up, and like they call it atmospheric shading, and I was like, oh wow, so that's purposeful, like in which case they've nailed it, because it does look exactly like that, and it looks really good.
That's coming out September, right? Tales of Arise.
That was known, and then like I know some people have been really like trying to like dig into like the menus and like the arts, and like, oh, this game has apples and orange gel, so it's gonna be like Team Symphonia games back when there was like two different lineage
that
of
doesn't
Tales
exist
type
anymore.
games. Yeah, like people's like, so for some context, it's for Tales games like pre Zilla or Graces, there were kind of like two distinct lineages. There was Team Symphonia and Team Destiny, where like the first family of games was like Symphonia, Abyss, Vesperia, and then Destiny 2, whatever. What else
Graces
was on
is,
that one?
is part of that.
Legendia.
Graces.
I was going to say the
sometimes
Destiny team
Legendia was sort of its own thing.
the Destiny team was more focused on 2D style Tales games, while the other team was more focused in a kind of like a 3D environment. And after, I think it was Cilia is when they merged, so that's why Cilia has a little bit of the battle system from the Destiny remake.
But sometimes people still try to like retroactively fit, like, is this more like a Symphonia game or a Destiny game? I'm
Who has the more influence in development?
Yeah.
It's so weird.
So you can dig really deep if you want to. The final announcement at the Summer Games Fest was, I think, one that we were kind of expecting, but they still like teased us with it throughout the whole night, and especially leading up right before they announced it. The unveiling of Elden Ring for the first time in like 2 years since its initial announcement. We got a big new 3-minute long trailer. We got a release date. We got a ton of like follow-up press and marketing and images and screenshots and interviews and details. Big blowout of everything for the next big project from Software. So where do we start? I want to start the release date
about
January 21st, 2022. So next January 21st. I want to talk about how this game has apparently a horse that can double jump.
Dude, I love that moment in the trailer where the horse just starts running up the wall vertically. It reminded me of the Sengoku Basara anime where like they had like horse motorcycles going up the castle. I'm like, this might be a good video game. This might be actually
also
a really
just
good
a really good trailer. So we actually watched this trailer, most of us, in like a group setting. And when it first showed up, like, oh yeah, Elden Ring, and we were like hyped. But then it just got better as it went along. Like the more they showed, the more I was into it. Like it was like, it's a well put together trailer. It just escalates. It just shows you so much, and it's paced really well. I could feel myself like getting amped and excited as.
Yeah, I'm so glad that like almost all of that trailer was just gameplay footage, like just in-game gameplay footage. This is exactly what's going to look like when you're playing the game, and like it's such a dense trailer that like you can really just break it apart and be like, okay, what could this be? And then like the follow-up interviews like kind of make more sense of like what you saw in that trailer. Oh, it's so good. Like to a lot of people, and understandably so, it's like it just looks like another Dark Souls. But I'm just like, hell yeah, dude! I fucking love Dark Souls.
I saw like a joke tweet that took off where it's like, it looks like Dark Souls with horses, and I'm like, I'm in.
Yeah, like so.
I mean, you
what
don't
they
have to
wanted.
say anymore. Like honestly, if
Please
the whole
say
trailer, if the trailer was just From Software and then the logo again, I'd still would have been all in.
I love like the color palette. I love being able to like double jump. Like it looks like the perfect melding of Sekiro and Dark Souls. Like and like, oh my god, that's exciting.
It's really interesting because like that trailer and the follow-up interviews like really show that Elden Ring is sort of like a culmination of like From Software's entire career with the Soulsborne series and Sekiro. Like they're taking lessons learned from each and every single entry and kind of like putting this in this Elden Ring melting pot of like, what can we do to just like take the best from each entry and like how well do they fit together? Because in that trailer, they showed like, oh, there's like Sekiro parrying. Oh, there's like the Bloodborne dash. Oh, there's Dark Souls rolling. And then with the follow-up interviews, they're like, yeah, we're going back to like how we did it in Demon Souls and Dark Souls, where there's a non-linear progression where you kind of can choose the order of like how you want to tackle areas, and then there'll be like a critical path that you can get through, but there's a lot of like optional bosses and areas that you can go explore off on your own, and they're really making a point of like exploration is a big key focus of this game. They're also talking about that like they're not going to take like the Sekiro path again. This is a lot more RPG stats heavy focus. You can have builds in this game, so a lot of people were delighted to hear that. And then they're talking about like one of the new mechanics in this game, or not even a new, but like a big focus of this game is like there'll be like spirits that you can summon to aid you in battle. They can be like offensive, defensive. Some of them will just be useless and have like a certain gimmick. And they're also taking like the Dark Souls 3 weapon arts system, where like a weapon art was like bound to like exclusively to a weapon in Dark Souls 3, but in Elden Ring, those weapon arts are just now part of a pool, and you can like apply them to any weapon in the game. So like they're just like talking about so much things that like in passing that like it affects so much of the game, because now you have like such like, because of that one little detail, there's so much build variety now that like I can't imagine what sort of like playthroughs each person's gonna have to these games. Like, what were your strategies? Oh, I use this spirit and this weapon with this weapon art. It's like, that works? What?
Yeah, like, and I could see people like say, like, I remember when I was playing Neo and I was using magic, and I forget if it was George or Adam who was like, I didn't even know you could do that. Like,
It was me.
I never even tried to use magic. So I could see that easily happening here, where it's like, I use these skills and I used a two-handed sword, and someone's like, well, I used I don't know, a club followed by, and I use these magic to support me in the spirit. And like, oh, I didn't even think about trying that. Like, I could easily, I hope that's kind of where we end up once this game's released. It's just people tinkering and messing with like, oh, I really struggled on this boss. Because like Josh said, there's like 6 main areas, which is each like a demigod or like one of the, basically like the kind of the realms of the different antagonists of the game, and they're like non-linear. So people might have like struggle in certain areas. Like I found the marsh or whatever swamp that is coming easy, and someone else found it difficult because they used like a different skill set or a different gear set that was more suited to that area. So it's exciting to speculate and think about.
Yeah.
Also, there is a pot gremlin.
Yes.
And there's like a cauldron. There's a guy with like a cauldron. It's either the cauldron is either his head or on his head. I don't remember.
It's interesting to see also, like, I feel like both this and Diablo 4 have like this system of like horses are a key feature that game, that you just like jump off the horse and do like a attack animation midair after jumping off the horse. And it's like, is that just coming back? Like, horses are a key gameplay part again? Because I'm all for
Horses are the new grappling.
That's right.
Well, they did mention that like this is the largest world that they've built, and I'm guessing that's due to the fact that you can traverse it so much quicker. So, if this was any other developer, I'd be like, well, I hope it's not just big for the sake of being big. But like, I don't think I've ever worried about that for like Dark Souls or Demon Souls, or being like not dense and full of stuff. Like, if it was any other developer, I might be like concerned, but I'm not here. I'm excited to see like what they can do with having basically two different speeds of traversal. You might have areas that you're intended to run around on horseback and move much more quickly, and then followed by like the dungeon areas which is more classically, on foot Souls exploration.
Yeah. I mean, as tempting as it is to like talk about this for like 5 hours, I mean, there's many analysis videos.
But Elden Ring looks badass.
It's so good. I'm so excited for it. It's also it's releasing by that new Pokemon game, right? Next year. That
the week before Arceus.
Yeah,
we hope.
I never announced this, but Elden Ring is releasing for basically current and last gen, so PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series. This might sound a little bit like snarky, but like I feel like I wouldn't want to play this on an Xbox One. Like, pick any of the other options. I don't know.
I hope that half of it has adaptive trigger support on PS5. I want to play it there.
That's a cool idea. With like the weapon swings or whatever. Because sometimes like the bigger arcing attacks were like mapped to the triggers. Ooh,
yeah,
I could see that.
Ooh, deliver us to the promised land, Miyazaki.
All right, so following the Summer Games Fest, the first publisher event was the Koch Media Expo. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And this one was a weird one. So I don't know if I want to talk to maybe Adam about this, because Adam was able to see what Koch Media was planning to show throughout the week earlier in a press event. And we kind of got to look at a few trailers, a few of the things we're going to announce. And then we have this public-facing expo. And it wasn't what we expected. So what did you think about it, Adam?
Okay, so Koch Media, they are also known as Deep Silver. Before E3, they invited me and other people from press to basically like preview the games they're going to be showing. Now this is they're part of like the Embracer group. They have like Saints Row under their belt. They have Dead Island, if that's still a thing, and a few other franchises like that. And so people were hoping like maybe they'll announce a new Saints Row or something. That's not it. So during this invited private event, they showed press a new publishing label called Prime Matter. Why exactly they need a new publishing label when they have Deep Silver already, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe Deep Silver has a really bad reputation, and their idea to have to repair it is just to make a new one. I don't know. That didn't seem to work. But they showed off a bunch of games, including several RPGs. But it's more like it's more like an indie publisher sort of deal, like for like European developers, and there's like a Brazilian developer and a Korean one. For the sort of new IP AA scale games. So there is no Saints Row or anything like that. It's a bunch of games you've never heard of before. Like there's an RPG called Dolmen. There is an RPG called The Last Oricru. There was an action adventure game whose name escapes me, but it's from like an Icelandic studio that actually looked pretty nice. Like visually, it was the most impressive one. So during this private event, they showed like, 5 to 10 minutes of each game, kind of in sequence. Like here are the games, and here's some developers talking over the gameplay footage about what it is. And even if it's stuff that didn't like necessarily interest you, it's like, we're seeing the game, we're seeing a developer talk about it. It's like, oh, okay, I see what this is. And I just assumed, and other people assumed this as well who were there, that like, oh, okay, so when they show this during the E3 event, it's just going to basically be this again, only maybe like the public version of it, right? But instead, this Koch Media event, and Koch is how they pronounced it, so that's how I'm going to pronounce it. During the E3 event, it was like Zoom interviews with the developers, and it was the sort of thing, they went like 25 minutes at the start without showing any gameplay footage.
It was bad.
For an E3 stream, it's like, what are you doing? I'm not saying like developer interviews are like you never want to do them, but for an E3 showcase, and like no warning ahead of time of what they're showing, that seemed weird. And not only that, but like the games that they were talking about were games that I knew about because I went to a private event for them. But if you didn't go to that event, these games you've never heard of before. They've been announced maybe in like text somewhere. But they're talking about these games. They didn't even tell you the title clearly, that you had no idea what they were talking about. They weren't showing anything. It was just developers talking. It was really weird. Like I saw some streamer people basically trying to deduce like what's even the title of the game we're talking about right now. Like we have no idea. It was really strange.
It was also weird because like that's also the stream that I think Koch Media like paid like streamers to co-stream.
Yes.
As well. So they had to.
Can you imagine a streamer, like they have to watch it because they've been paid for it, and they're like, I have no idea what's going on.
And co-streamers have to be like painted like, yeah, it's okay, guys. It's all right. Go Koch Media.
It's really weird because like they've also like there are some games they announced that they showed footage for me in press, but they didn't show. I think they still haven't released it publicly, and it's just.
I think The Last Oricru is one of those where there's some public screenshots, but no footage.
Right, and it's just like. But by the way, that game is like it fits very well as like the epitome of Eurojank. By the way, but anyways, it just seemed really weird. Out of all the games that Koch Media showed, the one that seems the most interesting to me, actually, let me look this up. I forget the title.
It's Painkiller, right? It's a Painkiller reboot.
They announced there were two things they announced that were maybe the Painkiller announcement as well as the like Payday 3 announcement were the ones that were kind of known quantities in terms of what people are aware of, but they couldn't really say anything about either of them. So
while you're looking that up, I will say that they have a game that's a post-apocalyptic kind of CRPG called Encased, which reminds me a bit of it reminds me a bit of what What was the game?
Fallout? Was that one?
Well, it kind of like maybe Fallout. Fallout's a prototypical CRPG, the old school Fallouts, anyways. But what was that game that got deleted and delisted from all the storefronts?
Oh, Paranoia, Happiness is Mandatory.
Okay, yeah, that's it. For some reason, it had escaped my brain. But it reminds me of Paranoia because in Paranoia, it talks about like you're in an underground facility and like you only have access to certain places. Like you have red access or blue access or green access. And here in this trailer for Encased, it seems sort of like kind of similar, where it's like it talks about the different wings of this. I don't know if it's like a facility or like a campus of some sort, and like different ones have kind of like different focuses or different specialities. So it's only releasing in early access.
Well, it's already out in early access.
Oh, sorry. It's releasing out of early access with its 1.0 release later this year. But that's the one that I thought was kind of interesting. It's mainly because like, hey, there was another game that was kind of like this, Paranoia, that just like evaporated off the face of the map. So maybe I'll try this one out instead.
Yeah, so the game that looked most like visually impressive to me was called Echoes of the End. It's from an Icelandic studio called, and I'm going to totally mispronounce this, Myrkir. It's an action adventure game, so I don't know if it really fits like our website. But like out of all the games, it's like that's the one I'm actually like most keen to like see what they do with it. But otherwise, you know, none of these are like proven studios or proven IPs really, besides like Painkiller. So you know, it's like a grab bag. We'll see if any of them. Like,
Gungrave is a proven IP. Thank you very much.
Oh, there's Gungrave.
Has Gungrave gore for some reason.
Yeah.
I guess I'm stupid. I'm like, oh, hopefully that game's good. So
following the Koch Media presentation, so we'll have to see if any of those games like Dolmen or Encased or any of those end up like really surprising. We'll have to wait until we get like more concrete details on a lot of them.
They did make two. They did make two smaller announcements too. I want to make sure I get to. Kingdom Come Deliverance is coming to Switch,
and it's the same porting studio that did Witcher 3, so should be decent.
I don't know how the hell it's going to manage to run on Switch, considering how CPU bound that game is.
I think I'm the only person who's played this, at least to any significant extent. Creator, you know, idiocy aside, the game itself is actually pretty decent. Apparently, the Switch port came out that it's when they were selling the game in Japan, like the Japanese press release said it was coming to Switch, and like it was even picked up by like Nintendo. Like as you know, like listed somewhere, advertised somewhere, but like it wasn't the case. And then at that point, they just sort of saw the kind of like the fervor over it overall. Like maybe we should actually look into seeing if we can do this.
That's an interesting anecdote.
They can.
I'm imagining like a Japanese audience like really clamoring for this very like prototypically Western fantasy game. Well, not even fantasy, Western medieval. Like that's interesting that there's a market for that. It's kind of cool, actually.
Yeah, and the other announcement was that Outward, which is a Canadian survival RPG, which Brian played, is coming to next-gen consoles. Yeah, and you thought it was pretty decent, right?
Yeah, it's not
Outward,
great. Outward is like first of all, it is janky, so you have to have like the stomach for that. But it's like imagine a third-person action RPG that really focuses on like survival elements, like almost like Rust or something. So it kind of does like try to like mesh those two genres together a bit. I want to get back to it and play like what was the announcement? It's coming to Switch?
Just next gen consoles. So
just not
that interesting.
I want to play some of the expansions that have come out since launch. Some of the added stuff they put, because it's like a 9 Dots is like a studio of like 12 people, I think. So they're really like hammering that game pretty well.
Hey, and it's sold more than 1 million units. That's pretty darn good.
Yeah.
So
the very next showing after the Koch Media debacle was the big IGN Expo. Now, the only game that I picked out of here to talk about was a new trailer for Steelrising. This is from Spider's studio, known for making Greedfall. We had the original announcement trailer of Steelrising, like from last summer, which was just like a cinematic, like couple minute trailer. And then this is basically just 50 seconds of the same thing. So I really did think, like, I liked Greedfall enough that I was really excited to see, like, I wonder what Spiders does next. But then they got picked up by Nacon, the French publishing label. Nacon. And then, like, so this game takes place like in an alternate universe French Revolution, where, if I understand this right, you play as like a marionette in service of the queen, and it's very awkward. Like, for some reason, I am not jiving with just the premise at all. Like, 'cause when I think of marionettes are very useful. Like, when I say marionette, like animatronic, like jointy,
like a robot puppet.
And then, like, I think that makes a really good like antagonist, or it's something that kind of sets, like, unnerves you and puts you on edge. But now it's like the protagonist is one of those, which is like, okay, that's interesting. Like, that's ballsy. I'm just like not sure I'm on board, but also we've barely seen anything from this game. Like, this trailer is 50 seconds long. So
yeah, and the original trailer was also like 50 seconds long, and most of it was just like circling around renders, right?
Right, it was.
So we barely have seen this game, so that's, you know, it's like we just gotta wait for more, right? But also, they did announce that this game is planned for 2022. Originally, they didn't have even a year. And I was wondering if it was further out, because Greedfall took a while. Like, Greedfall came out like 5 years after it was announced, or something like that. Maybe 3-4 years, but it took a while in any case. So this being announced last year, I wondered how long it was going to take, but apparently it'll be available next year. You still haven't seen much, though.
Well, Nacon is having another show in early July, so maybe we'll see more. I'm not on board yet, even though I really liked what Spiders did with Greedfall. Yeah. So at this point, I'm really in just kind of wait and see mode. Was there anything else out of the IGN Expo worth covering, or should we just kind of move on in service of keeping pace?
Yeah, I think I can't think of anything.
All right. The next one was Ubisoft Forward, which kind of a lot of the same story here, where they did talk a lot about Far Cry 6 was, I think, a big headliner of that show. We focused on an announcement of something that had previously leaked on like the Nintendo eShop like the day before or something.
Nintendo themselves.
Okay. So what we're talking about is Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope. So another game in that surprisingly successful series. So what was the name of the first title? Mario and Rabbids?
Kingdom
Battle. That sold like 7 million or something like that, which is insane to me.
The director, like right after the sequel got announced, said, "Yeah, we sold like 7.5 million copies," and it's like, oh shit.
Yeah, Jesus. And this is like, so Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle and now Sparks of Hope is this weird crossover of three things: Mario, the Ubisoft Rabbids, which used to be everywhere, but now it seems to be like this is what they're relegated to, and XCOM gameplay. So I've never played the original. Has anyone here played Kingdom Battle?
Yeah, I played it. I think it was like really good. Again, gimmicks. If you get me a gimmick, and I usually hate the Rabbids because they obviously killed Rayman, but like I like Mario, so it was it's pretty cool. I hold a grudge, all right?
You're murderers.
But yeah, this one looks like quite different. Like they've got free movement, and I'm not sure how like far it extends. I still think it's quite like XCOM-y, but like within your area, you can just like run around a bit.
I don't.
That seems to be the main difference.
I don't like this debut trailer because it showed me what Rosalina would look like as a rabbit, and that did maybe sick to my stomach.
Isn't there like a rabbit Luma too somewhere?
Yeah. Those are the sparks now. So the sparks are the in the press release they call them the uncanny creatures formed by the fusion of Lumas and Rabbids. I'm like, I don't like that at all.
What does that mean?
So I don't know, man. It's look, sure, why not? That was a fun first game. I'm down for a second one. It looks great.
Yeah, it does look really good.
It looks silly and goofy, which I think more games should allow. Like, so many games are like so intent on being seen as like artsy or like really serious. So I'm glad that we're just like, we're gonna wear this goofy like irreverence on our sleeve and make that like a core of our game. Like, I'm glad that someone out there is doing that and having fun doing it.
Mario did dual guns in the first one, or
we have progressed past the need
they looked
for.
Differently, though, didn't they?
Go ahead, James.
We have progressed past the need for irony poisoning. We can just be cringe and live it.
There you go.
So yeah, I mean they're saying, hey, you're gonna have like a roster of 9, and then they showed off Rabbid Peach, Rabbid Mario, Princess Peach in this trailer, along with Rabbid Rosalina. But we don't know too much about like what are the new improvements here. We saw a little bit of gameplay, but not too much. I think this is releasing sometime next year for Switch, right?
Yeah,
they
it was unannounced.
They just said
like,
2022.
Yeah, which was kind of like this sounds really petty, and I hate to be that guy. It's like, oh, when's this game coming out? But like sometimes you see a trailer and like, oh, that's definitely coming this year, right? Like that's been in development ages, and like 2022. Like, oh,
Now that seems to be like a at least that was a big part of E3. It was like when you think about release dates, it like I think there was no other. Only really the Nintendo Direct had like a big chunk of like 2021 releases. Everyone else was like 2022. It's like, all right, well, we'll check up with you.
This year's cancelled, guys.
Yeah, I guess. So, sure.
And then obviously that's coming out only for Switch.
Yep.
All right, now here's one of the big ones. The big first press event for Xbox / Bethesda, now under one banner, E3 2021 showcase. Now, this was interesting kind of going into it because I think like the last 2 years, or sorry, not including 2020 because that didn't happen, but 2018 and 2019, I remember going into the Xbox event, there was like a lot, because obviously Phil Spencer was at the helm. There was a lot of like upward momentum for Microsoft and Xbox. And it was like Sony wasn't there, or Nintendo might have had a down year. And it was like, this was their chance to really like blow the lid off. And then they just kind of like whiffed. Like they had some decent showings, but it wasn't quite, it didn't quite capture the way that people thought they might. And I feel like the general consensus seems like, despite the odd circumstances of this year, it seems like maybe they finally kind of like delivered up to their potentially. Obviously, everyone has their own opinion, because we have a lot to talk about that came out of the big Xbox Bethesda showcase. And I just put everything here in a random order. It's like 9 different topics here.
I remember who was the first person to present that, though, when it opened up? Do you remember when the Xbox press conference opened up this year for E3? Do you remember who the first person on that?
Todd Howard.
Howard.
That's so weird.
Oh, yeah.
God Howard.
Announcing another Skyrim board. Just kidding.
He can't get away with this. He's getting us all to buy Game Pass, so we're paying for Skyrim every month.
Somewhere in that presentation, Hines was up there to talk about Skyrim very briefly. Okay, Skyrim did show up there. Fuck.
All right, so let's start with that. So we finally got the big reveal announcement for the long-awaited Starfield, releasing November 11th of next year, 2022. Which, first of all, that's kind of weird, because when I saw this had a date, I didn't read it carefully enough at first. I'm like, wait, November 11th? What? This game's coming out in 5 months? Kind of like how Fallout 4 was like announced in the summer and came out that holiday. But no, this is November 11th of next year, which is weird to see as such a specific date more than a year out. It's not unheard of, but it's uncommon.
One of those things, like, is it gonna get delayed? Like, I feel like that's like such
Definitely,
a weird,
yeah.
like specific.
You're asking for problems.
Yeah.
So this trailer was kind of like more like setting the tone. It's kind of a slower paced cinematic introduction, showing like this explorer that was in like this kind of like this moon lander sort of thing. So it seems like it's trying to like set like what this sort of game might feel like, but obviously doesn't show gameplay, doesn't really go beyond that. I know some people that I talked to were kind of like disappointed in this trailer, but I'm actually kind of okay with it. That it, like, not every game announcement has to come out of the gates like screaming about like how hype it is. so I think it's actually, and especially like space exploration, just like as a concept, might have like a more metered pace to it, if that's kind of what this game's premise is going to be. They did talk a little bit about how this is built on. I know some people are going to cringe at this, the Creation Engine 2. So obviously, one of the big bugbears of Bethesda and ZeniMax has been how long in the tooth the Creation Engine has been for both their iteration of the Fallout games and the Elder Scrolls games. So when are they going to finally move on? Just having a sequel, or not sequel is a weird word for it, just having a Creation Engine 2 alleviate those fears? Well, it's kind of hard to judge because we haven't seen any gameplay about like how this game looks or how it performs. So it's still kind of like just punting
with it being a next gen exclusive, they might be designing the engine around requiring an SSD, which can change things.
Mm-hmm.
So who knows? I think the trailer was good in that it accomplished like for giving us our first taste of like the engine, giving us an idea for what the tone of the game is going to be. There's still plenty of time for them to show gameplay. I mean, again, it's a year and a half out from now. We're going to see gameplay. I'd imagine that we might even see gameplay as early as the Game Awards if we're lucky. But
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point.
All right.
Yeah.
I have 3 takeaways for the Starfield.
Oh, I'm
trailer.
surprised.
All right.
Go
All
ahead.
right. One, I was all in-game footage, all the in-game footage. It was surprisingly good. Like I was like, oh wow, this looks awesome. So I'm glad that what they showed was all in-game footage. 2, that sandwich looked really good in that trailer.
Yeah, that's a nice looking sandwich.
I'll take a bite out of that.
Best bread I've seen in a video game since Yakuza 7, which is on Game Pass now.
3, I saw a mech in that trailer, like some sort of mech of walking around the moon. I'm like, all right,
I'm sold.
I'm so. Oh yeah. So
And this did this. Sorry, I'm stammering here. This did also answer kind of another question that people had kind of been like throwing around. It's like, are they going to allow quote unquote this to release on PlayStation? And it seems like the answer is no. It's releasing on Xbox Series X and S and PC. We will be Game Pass day one, but it seems like that's what happens when the console publisher owns the developer.
Ryan,
I suppose.
Can I just say this?
Just go ahead.
I think the only people that were actually hoping they would be on PlayStation were fanboys in denial. And I'm pretty sure we're going to have the same song and dance whenever, like, right before they showcase, like, Elder Scrolls 6. People will be like, but will it be on PS5, though? And it's like, no, just...
It's one of those things. It's one of those things where I'm just like not that passionate about it because it's just like they're owned by Microsoft. Like I wouldn't expect it on PlayStation. That's just kind of like
I can see the misconception because a lot of people who don't like really closely follow the game industry, like to them it won't make sense because they start to fulfill the contracts of Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo. Yeah. So they'll be like, why are these still releasing on PlayStation then, but not these? Like, because they don't really follow like very closely like how these contracts were arranged prior to the Microsoft buying Bethesda. So I can see the confusion around that sort of deal and whatnot. But moving forward, hopefully that dissipates over time. Obviously, it's going to be a rough, rocky road from the offset, right? So it's to be expected. That's fine. Yeah, I think it's all right.
I have 2 follow-up questions.
Go for it,
if I can ask. So yeah, this is for people who play these sorts of games. I don't know if like I'm not sure if George has played a Bethesda game at all.
Yes.
Oh, you have? Okay, never mind.
Bethesda games, yeah.
All right.
Just not Fallout 76.
All right. So do you all think that the protagonist of this game will be voiced?
No.
And
to follow up,
do you hope they will be voiced? Yeah, okay. That's well, so here's like I see a sentiment sometimes where it's like they hate silent protagonists, but like to me there's like a bit of nuance there because there's a difference between a character who like never speaks and is never implied to speak and then a character like in a game like this is presumably where you have dialogue choices, so like the character is presumed to speak, they're just not given a voiceover because their voice is the one in your head. That's my takeaway. Like I don't need a paid actor. I don't need to like select from a list of dialogue options, pick one, and then hear someone read it back to me. I just read it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I totally agree.
To me, and I don't know if this game will be first and third person like the other games, or will be only first person. I don't know if they've said that anywhere.
in the interview. I think they did confirm that.
Third and first, yeah.
I would
said,
never
like,
play,
just like-
I would never play in third.
Some other like small details that have come out from interviews, just I'm gonna like rattle these off. They say it's inspired like it's a Han Solo type adventure, which sounds absolutely my shit. They said it is. I think they said it's like a bit more of a hardcore RPG, like it leans into RPG elements more, but not like, I wouldn't say off-puttingly, but like not going drastically far from like Fallout and that. So like, what else is
Hopefully
there?
more
That's-
like
they said
looking at Bethesda's work. Hopefully more Fallout 3 and less Fallout 4 at least.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
But like, there's loads of details out there, but it's like, it's for me, it's still too early to be like really excited about it. I don't want it to be like No Man's Sky. I know that's a weird comparison, but I hope there's not too much on the ship building and like traveling. Like, I kind of just want to go to alien planets, and then I kind of just want Outer Worlds too, which we'll get to. But like, there's details out there. It looks really good. I'm hopeful. Like,
Yeah, so
that's about it.
I've really been inspired by kind of the work that they put into 76, even though that launched in such a terrible state. But like, unfortunately, we have to go all the way back to Fallout 4 since we've seen a major title from Bethesda Game Studios otherwise in the same vein. So I'm excited. I kind of want to replay the other, like, both Elder Scrolls, Skyrim, and the other Fallouts, but like Starfield, it's cool to see like a new IP, and it's not just something that's more iterative. It's something that can really like do something different. So it'll be interesting to see like if I hope it doesn't just feel like space flavored Fallout or something like that. I hope it feels different.
Yeah, I think that's about the vast potential and hope for this game. It's like, since it's in space now, there's all sorts of like unexplored territory that they can like go through, right? Because it's not, unless they're just going to go to the most boring route. It's like, it's medieval fantasy but in space, which on some level that sounds cool too. But you know, I really hope that they nail it. I'm really hopeful that this becomes something special.
Mm-hmm. So I guess the next thing on the list is to talk about The Outer Worlds 2. Now, I think a lot of people, this was kind of like all but confirmed. I know a lot of people have been looking at like Obsidian job listings or things like that, and they were trying to like subdivide who's working on what at Obsidian, who's on Avowed, who's on Grounded, who's on Josh Sawyer's mystery game or whatever. And it seemed like people were still working on like the Outer Worlds project. Turns out they are. The Outer Worlds 2 was announced. Obviously, the Outer Worlds 1 was announced before the merger between Microsoft and Bethesda and released after. So it's another one of those games that is releasing like everywhere, where the Outer Worlds 2 is only releasing as of announced for Xbox Series and PC. Only had a cinematic trailer. The cinematic trailer took this very like depreciating, like we're gonna show you nothing in this cinematic trailer because we don't have anything ready to show for you yet, which some people found funny, some people found cringy. I thought, like, I grinned, like it was fine.
It's Outer Worlds. It's very intense.
Yeah,
like,
so I'm like Outer Worlds I thought was a game that was good but not great, and I know some people like really when the Outer Worlds was first revealed, which feels like not that long ago, honestly, some people like kept thinking and kept pulling back to Fallout New Vegas constantly, and it never really felt like that to me. So I hope people don't just say like, now this one will be like Fallout New Vegas. Like, I really don't think it's like that sort of game. It really feels like more because other than the fact that it's first person an RPG, like, it doesn't really feel that similar to me. But anyways, getting away from that comparison, the Outer Worlds 1, I think it's mainly weak because it wasn't balanced very well. It didn't play into its RPG systems that much. It gave you like a ton of like consumable options, so like the difficulty was nothing. And I'm not saying every game has to be challenging, but this was like brainless. Like, you had 100 healing items at your disposal to use instantly whenever.
Yeah. One thing I will say that stood out to me about the Outer Worlds, and I never played the DLC, maybe the DLC was better about it.
Me neither.
It felt like by the end of the game, all of your builds were going to be the same because you had more than enough leeway to kind of specialize, quote unquote, in pretty much a little bit of everything. And unlike some RPGs where they kind of disincentivize that because no, you need to specialize or you're not going to have a great time. It feels like the game's just perfectly willing for you to like specialize in everything and just do perfectly at everything, no problems, and I'm not sure how I feel.
Yeah, so like I'm
Yeah.
fine with the tone, I'm fine with the setting. I actually thought that the narrative was actually kind of well done, where it has like this big, irreverent, jokey, slapsticky tune, but then it kind of slowly funnels you to like, we have a serious problem that you need to solve, and you're capable of doing it because of X, Y, and Z. I don't want to spoil it. And like that was actually like, I thought, well done, but just kind of undermined by the fact that it didn't really feel like a fun game to play. It wasn't a very good RPG. So that's kind of where I hope. I know some people were saying like, oh, now they've got Microsoft money, I hope it's bigger and shinier. And I'm just like, I hope it's just more balanced. Like, I know that sounds really like push up my glasses on my face, but like rethink how many like skill and perk points they allocate, like enemy design, world design, that sort of thing. So I really hope that they let this, like, even though it was announced shortly after like the first game, if we don't see this game for a long time, I'm okay with that. Just let this one cook.
Yeah,
So I do think actually part of the problem with the original was that, and this is partially speculation, but it seems like it was meant to be like a smaller scale game. But then when people saw were interested in it, like really interested in it, especially after Fallout 4, it feels like the scope of the game sort of ballooned and maybe kind of overreached in a way. So I do think there is some merit to people saying, like, you know, if they have Microsoft money behind it now, if they, you know, maybe the scope of the game is larger, but maybe it can match the resources will be there. Yeah. Because I do think that was a problem with the first game, was that it always felt like it was meant to be smaller scale. Because it was like if you look at the other stuff that Private Division publishes, it is all like, I don't want to say indie, but you know, I think it even is billed as like an indie publisher, like smaller scale, AA sort of stuff. Where this is a Microsoft flagship, maybe we'll see. So yeah.
Luckily, Obsidian is like a studio that like they're pretty good about taking lessons learned from past projects and applying that to another project, a future project. So hopefully, what everything that everyone else is saying, you know, I think they get it.
Yeah, I like would probably sound most positive on the first one, but I've always said from that review that a sequel would be so much better than the DLC. Like, don't give me like little more episodes. Like, I won't play them. I will play a sequel that like fixes and improves upon everything, and that's what we're getting, hopefully.
By the way, speaking of DLC, it just makes that specialization problem worse because you get more level ups and more skill points.
Oof.
So instead of being a jack of all trades, you're just literally like God at everything.
A demigod.
Under Jack.
Chaos.
Please don't kill me.
More on that later. All right, then the next trailer that they showed, well, I don't know if these trailers are in order, but the next one we have listed from the Microsoft showing was one that I don't think we expected to appear here. We got a new trailer for the successful Kickstarter project, Eiyuden Chronicles, which is basically the kind of built in the vein as like a spiritual successor to Suikoden. So they had a big, 90-second trailer for this coming to Xbox Series, followed by the announcement of Eiyuden Chronicle Rising, which is like a town building spin-off built in like the same world and engine coming next year. So we got the announcement of Eiyuden Chronicles coming in 2023. So that one's a ways off, and based on the Kickstarter, I think we're not surprised on that.
That's not a real year.
Yeah, 2023. I can't count that far ahead. But then also the announcement of this Rising spin-off, which we didn't get a ton of details about, but it's basically just seems like using what they have built from Eiyuden Chronicle as like a town building spin-off. I don't really know the details here. Did we get like a press release for further information on Rising, or is this trailer all we have?
We have that short trailer, and then it's basically a town building game. It's set before the events of Eiyuden, but yeah, it's like setting the stage.
Yeah, it looks to play different because it like what the brief clip that we saw, it looked like a side-scrolling action RPG. It's not like where like Eiyuden Chronicle looks like sort of a more turn-based affair from what they show. We don't actually know like how it's all going to play out, but that's what it looked like. They're making a clear distinction between the two in game play styles, I think. Question mark? I don't
Yeah,
know.
we don't really know.
They had the official site up shortly after that gave us like a brief description of what Rising is, and that's all we really have to work off of, I think, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. And then there's a brief like debacle that they thankfully got fixed when the official website went up. It only listed the Xbox Series, and Xbox is the platforms launching, but obviously this had a Kickstarter. It's coming to like a lot of other platforms, so they seem to have gotten that sorted. I think they sent out like a insider letter. Like I know you tossed some money into that Kickstarter. Did you read that?
Yeah, they basically said it was kind of like front and center that you might be wondering if this game is exclusive to Xbox. No, it's coming to basically all platforms, which is going to be Xbox One or Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5. Maybe Xbox One and PS4. I'm not actually sure if they've confirmed that because it's going to be a ways away. That'll be really last gen at that point. And then coming to Nintendo as well, whether that's Switch or next Switch, it's coming to everything. At this point, the question is like, will it release on PlayStation 4 in 2023 or just PS5? It's hard to say.
Probably have to see the landscape by the future. I mean,
yeah, exactly. They
for...
probably just don't want to like they don't want to like they don't want to make a determination right now either way. It's like it just sort of depends on what platforms people are using at in 2 years.
Yeah,
so.
I think it's also weird because I've also heard like some backlash, especially from backers, that like they're pissed off that it's coming to Xbox Game Pass. Like, come on, that's weird. But well, I pray that this is a really great game.
Yeah, Suikoden is amazing, and original writer. It's got Mariko, or what's her name? Michiko Naruke, who is the actually Wild Arms composer, doing something for it. I hope it's good. I'm really excited. It's 2 years away.
Don't say that. It hurts.
It's also got Motoi Sakuraba on it too, so he seems to be the main composer.
Thank you, Sakuraba. There was those gameplay preview clips of Horizon, or like the battle theme for that banger.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the last time we had an ex-Konami dev do a Kickstarter, it turned out well. So hopefully we can keep that streak going.
Just hope it's not from a Capcom dev.
A few more of the smaller announcements that came out of the Xbox showing. The new update calling out for Fallout 76. I will let you know if it's any good. That's Steel Rain coming in July. We got this announcement
that Brian must bear.
I enjoy myself in spurts with Fallout 76, but in spurts. We got an announcement that Hades is coming to Xbox Series, Xbox One, PlayStation 5 and 4 in August. Wait, is Hades
Isn't that also coming to...
No, Hades only on Switch.
It's only Switch and PC right now. Yep.
Isn't it also coming to Game Pass?
Yes, day one.
Yeah.
Apparently the cross-save functionality that's between the PC and the Switch versions won't be available on the home console version, so no PS4, PS5, Xbox. Yeah, no cross-save with PC.
A few other, since you brought up Game Pass, Yakuza Like a Dragon / Yakuza 7 is now on Game Pass. Great game, one of my favorites from last year. A lot of Bethesda stuff went up on Game Pass, mostly a lot of classic Fallout plus New Vegas. We also got an announcement of a follow-up to A Plague's Tale: Innocence called A Plague's Tale: Requiem. Now, this was a late addition to the document. I did not watch the trailer or know anything about this. It's only announced for Xbox and PC. Like, why is that? Like, who's the developer on this?
Sorry. It's also announced for. Is it only announced for Xbox and PC?
I think so. Yeah. I think there's like a next gen.
Oh no! It's got a PS5 trailer too. So never mind. Ignore that.
Screw me.
It's called PS5, Xbox Series, Switch, but cloud only. So a cloud version of this game and PC via Steam, and that's coming next year. This is for people who don't know, this is a game with a lot of rats. So like A Plague's Tale: Innocence, like the whole like gameplay thing around it. It's like there's like these areas, there's a lot of rats, don't go there, type of stuff.
And when we
I
mean a lot of rats, it's literally like a tidal wave of rats.
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe it was a fever dream. Maybe I'm just misremembering it, but I am pretty damn sure that there was a literal tornado of rats in that trailer.
It's really funny because I think it was either me and Brian or me and Adam when that trailer first started, and I've seen this in a couple of other outlets. When that trailer first started, it looked like Baldur's Gate 3 at first because it looked like the debut trailer of that, for the first few frames, and it's like, what is this? And then all of a sudden there's like a huge tidal wave of rats just flowing through that narrow street. It's like, oh god, this is awful. What the hell? And it's like, oh, there it is. It's sequel to Plague's Tale. I'm really great stuff to the developer Asobo Studio and publisher Focus Home Interactive. That seems to have really done well for them. Good stuff.
So
And it
Plague
will
Tale
be-
is one of the games that it's not really an RPG because it's more like an adventure game. But we actually did review the original on our site, so it's like, we might branch out, try it out when it releases.
How was the first one? It was one of those. It was like I heard good things, but I
People
just
really
missed
liked
it.
it. It was a
Oh,
darling
good.
upon release.
I don't know what you're saying, Adam. Obviously, this is an RPG, a rat purging game.
I get it.
Yeah.
But yep, that was announced coming next year. Also will be on Game Pass day one. Then we move on to one of the ones that we're always excited about for good reason every year, at least in the years since they've been doing it. The Square Enix E3 Presents showcase.
Hold on, before we go there, just a brief.
Did I miss one?
fast. Yeah, Diablo 2 Resurrected is coming September 23rd. That's all that was already announced. But yeah, you kind of got a release date on that. It's the day after my birthday. Hell yeah!
Also, my birthday, not literally, but Psychonauts 2 got a release date. Aren't we all excited for that?
It's 25th, right?
Yeah.
My dad's
I'm so
birthday.
excited. It's not actually my birthday then, but like the idea of this game coming out on any day is like a birthday to me.
Yeah.
Your second
I'm so
birthday.
excited, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess the big takeaway from the Xbox Bethesda conference is like, if you're on Game Pass, you're fucking winning. You know?
Yeah.
Like, holy shit! The only 3 games that didn't have a Game Pass day one Game Pass announcement there was obviously Battlefield 4, Diablo 2 Resurrected, and Far Cry, and everything else Game Pass.
So now we'll move on to Square Enix. We had a lot of hype going into this, as we always do. They had like the show of the show, whatever you want to call it, either last year or the year before, with the big announcement of like when they announced like Tifa for Final Fantasy VII Remake and a whole bunch of other stuff. And this show might have been a little bit different. I don't even know what to start with. Maybe let's just start with the same thing they started with, which was the long rumored and speculated and finally unveiled Guardians of the Galaxy project. Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy releasing for PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Xbox Series X and S, Xbox One, and PC, everything.
And the Cloud
This
Switch
October.
version.
Oh, and
And
a Cloud
Nintendo
Switch
Switch.
version? Yeah, so coming out October 26th, we got a long look at Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah.
It looks like it would be fun, but God, they really didn't need to spend so long on it. They really didn't.
Well, let's get this out of the way before we go into this. So one, because I know a lot of people are gonna have questions. This is single player only. There's not a live service game. There's not a multiplayer game. There's no online mode, and then they're also touting that there's also going to be no DLC and no microtransactions in the game. So there's just single player, and you're only controlling one of the Guardians. It's Star-Lord. And then how this manifests in gameplay is obviously you're moving around with Star-Lord shooting his dual guns, but you can use I guess either order or interact with the other Guardians to use their abilities mid combat too. But in terms of movement and who's actually doing the thing, you're only playing Star-Lord in this game. They tout that one of the big features is there's a lot of obviously character moments and character interactions in this game, and since you're the leader, it kind of has this whole telltale effect in this game. One of the brief moments in the gameplay trailer that they showed off at E3 was, oh, we need to get over to this other platform in this planet that we're on. What should we do? Should we throw Rocket Raccoon over there or find another way that doesn't involve throwing him? So they decided, hey Groot, or was it Drax, go throw him over,
Drax,
to that other platform. And then like in Telltale fashion, when he does it, it says like Rocket Raccoon will remember this, or Rocket Raccoon furious at you for doing this,
Yeah.
whatnot. So they're taking that model as well. But you know what, I this game, like, it's unfortunate because this lives in a post Avengers Crystal Dynamics world. Because a lot of comparisons are drawn to it, but it's not really going for that at all. I think it has potential. I'm not so down about this than a lot of other people. I was like, you know what, this might be a cool game. This might be
Yeah, it looks good. I just feel like there's a lot of goodwill that went down the drain from the Marvel Avengers game, so people might be, they're kind of skeptical about the game.
Right? Because it's not even the same developers, because this is Eidos Montreal, not Crystal Dynamics.
I know, but people don't look at it that way. The casual person will be just like,
They just see like, oh, it's that non-MCU Marvel stuff. It's that off-brand Marvel, off-brand, quote unquote.
The one thing
I will say, go for it.
The one thing that really stood out to me with the Square Enix presentation, and it's just the vibe I got. It could just be entirely wrong, but the impression I get is that for the Western developers at Square Enix, they wanted to have a show where they could focus on them, because, like, obviously when we talk about Square Enix, especially in our sphere with RPGs and whatnot, everyone just cares about the Japanese stuff. Like, you'll have people say, oh yeah, I like Life is Strange, or oh yeah, I like Deus Ex, it's a new one. But there are so many developers that work under Square Enix. Like, hell, even like Hitman used to be under Square Enix with Eiyuden, and I guess they did announce a mobile game. And watching this presentation, it feels like there was obviously an emphasis on the Western properties because, well, otherwise they don't have a chance to really push them. And I understand that, but it's just like the pacing, if you're going to have anything from the Japanese side, it's just like the pacing is completely off, and the Guardians of the Galaxy taking up so much of the presentation is like the
It ended up
perfect
being like
example of that.
25 of the 40-ish minute runtime or something like that. So
pretty big.
I'm going to be
Like,
And like
controversial.
it's like maybe I'm looking at it the wrong way, but it's like I understand completely why it turned out this way, and I understand those developers, those people at the Western side of Square Enix. If that is indeed the case, it's like it makes sense, but the expectations were for something else entirely, and it just, I don't know.
Yeah, I like fully agree there in the sense that I think it was too long. Like, not for me, I loved it. That spoiler alert. But like to then move on to something people really want, which we'll get to in a sec, and show like not even a minute of it, and not really even
Literally
show it. Which we'll get
5
into.
seconds of
Get to that
actual footage.
We'll get to that in a bit. We'll focus on Guardians first.
But I'm going to be controversial and say that this is my game in the show. Like, I know everyone's like, you learn nothing from Avengers, dumbass. Yeah, maybe so, but it looks great. It looks so cool. And the main reason for that, one, like, gameplay looks really fun. I love all the character choices, like all the player choice moments. I love the licensed music, which, again, I'm saying all this and I like sound super basic. Like, that's all I need. But yeah, that nails Guardians. And the character interactions and even the character designs, like, they've done it right. They're all distinct. Like, obviously there's Drax and Groot.
I don't like Star-Lord's model. He kind of
I love it. He looks so cool. Like, he looks douchey. I love his jacket. So, like Sunset Overdrive.
An endearing
it's the best.
douche.
Like, that is Star-Lord. Exactly. And like just the voice acting, it's not Nolan North talking to Troy Baker. Like, I don't know who these voice actors are, and I'll be embarrassed if it ends up being one of them, but like they sound distinct from any other Rocket Raccoon I've heard, every other Star-Lord I've heard. And I'm just like, I'm so down for this. And I wasn't expecting to want to play this at all. Like, I was expecting to just be sarcastic and go, Avengers 2, can't wait till it comes out in 2024. But like, it's this year, it looks great. I'm really looking forward to this. This is like, Gotham Knights got delayed, so what else can I do? It's Guardians year.
Is your Gotham Knights of 2021?
Yeah, this is my Gotham Knights 2021.
Rock on. But
I
yeah,
have two things to say.
Go for it.
One, speaking of like Western Square Enix and what else they have under their belt, I literally got an email yesterday from Square Enix, Power Wash Simulator.
Yeah.
What?
Well,
Yeah.
technically, that's a bit different. That's a Square
that's
Enix
Square Enix
collective.
but still, it's under them in some weird tangential way.
I feel like I should say, since people probably don't remember what Collective is, basically it's like an indie publishing brand within Square Enix where they'll publish these indie developer games under the Square Enix label with Collective. It's kind of similar. Like a bunch of larger companies do this. Like EA does it with like the EA originals. You see like hell, Private Division is basically Take-Two's entire spin on it. So
yeah.
ID at Xbox.
Yeah.
So, and I
But
guess
the other thing I was going to say was that like I have two minds of this. One, I feel like maybe Square Enix should like take like the Nintendo Treehouse route where they like do like an announcement trailer and some gameplay for Avengers, and then like after the show do like a deeper, longer dive on it. Like that way it doesn't take up so much time. But also I also kind of feel like the other side of that is that maybe they just really wanted people to like they forced them to watch it, like because people would preconceptions based off Avengers just not want to watch
That's true.
the deep dive, so they just like would force like maybe that's intentional. Like we're gonna force this to be a 20-minute showcase and force people to watch it and hopefully change some minds. But yeah, I do think there is merit to that Treehouse style where it's like show a trailer and reveal and then deep dive it, later when people can watch more. Like I don't know what the right word for this is, but like as part of like an optional event rather than a stream event.
I agree.
Obviously.
Yeah, so like I think they should definitely have a place where they can platform their Western studios. So they definitely I'm glad that they opened up with this and they really want to they're proud of it and they want to show it off. It just felt like when just 25 minutes out of 40 and then followed by, and I'll jump ahead to this one. So one of the big projects that people had either speculated or quote unquote leaked or knew that they had prior knowledge of was the announcement of a collective of games from the early Final Fantasy series 1 through 6 were somehow going to be packaged together.
They're going to be packaged.
Well, no, that's the thing. These are what people presumed going in. But then they announced the Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster series, which sounds like, gee whiz, that's a cool idea. Make these games available to more people. And this kind of follows up on the news from a couple weeks ago where we had noticed that the 3D remakes for 3 and 4 were kind of relabeled in their mobile catalogs. So we're we're making space for these maybe. But the showing, even though this is something that people kind of went in either teased about or expected or hopeful for, what we ended up with was a 30-second trailer, barely kind of going over anything.
And then a 5-second moment within the trailer that actually had any gameplay whatsoever, and it was so quick that many people didn't even realize that what they were showing in the background was, this is actually footage of the new Pixel remasters for 1 through 5. Didn't show 6 yet, but it's literally. So I'm inside baseball here. We did put out an article kind of going, okay, so where are these sprites even from? What's different? What's from an older title? What's completely new? There was 5 seconds for us to work off of, and behind the scenes, myself, a couple of the other staff, Alex, brought out his Final Fantasy dot book because eventually we found out that the character sprites seem to be based off of the Final Fantasy dot artwork, and it just they could have handled this so much better.
I guess it's a fair disclosure also that we also don't know, because Square Enix released so little info about this, that we also don't know if the footage that we got in that trailer, that brief 5-second trailer, is final. Yeah, we don't know about that either. So James put up a really, really great insight article because he has the freshest knowledge of the old Final Fantasies from all of us, because he's doing his.
He just played 1 through 6.
I just played 1 through 6.
He just did it this year, so
what did you know?
Yeah.
Nothing. Like literally, I was just like, huh, I've only played Final Fantasy 14. 16 is coming out this year. You know what? I'm going to start playing through the numbered Final Fantasies this year. And it just so happened that it worked out.
I don't think 16 is coming this year at this point if it didn't show it off.
That's not going to come out this year, which is good because I'm behind schedule, even if I am like pretty deep into Final Fantasy 11. So that's worth something.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's glad that these exist. Hopefully they're a hell of a lot better than previous efforts, but it feels so, I don't know, not disrespectful, but it feels like this is their big flagship series, Final Fantasy, and they're like, all right, just throw a 30-second trailer. All right, we're good.
And not only that, but it's a 30-second trailer. The last 10 seconds of the trailer are just the logos panning. So it's like 20 seconds. And then I'm reading Adam's news article on this, and it's just reading the sentence. I'm like laughing about it. You can probably hear it through my voice. You can see quick glimpses of gameplay footage from about 15 seconds to 22 seconds. Like, oh, that's the window. It's just like,
even that is being generous. It literally is like 5 seconds. It's
You're just thrown out. Like, you know.
I do love that, like, obviously they handled it really badly, but it's so RPG side that you guys did do that, where you like analyze the pixels and try to match them to like this artwork. Like hearing about that from just watching it on the staff chat and like then seeing the article, I was like, this team, like that's so cool.
Nerd.
Yeah.
So here's a couple details I did not mention that people are also seemingly pretty passionate about. This is coming to Steam and mobile. No console ports, Switch, PlayStation, or Xbox announced, sold individually. So weird decisions there.
Jesus Christ.
Also, like no dates.
Yeah, and no dates.
Or windows or anything.
It does look like that at least one of the gameplay additions we're going to have is there is a mini map, even in dungeons now, that'll be especially useful for Final Fantasy II. There's a fast forward button in the upper left, which makes a lot of sense. So, I mean, again, we don't know if this is final. We don't know like anything about like how things are going to end up. I will say that I think that, well, it's kind of easy to say, oh, the sprites look fine for Final Fantasy V because Final Fantasy V was already a simpler like art style for the sprites in the first place, so the changes are pretty minimal. But I don't know. It's a little disappointing that they're not being done in the style of the PSP versions of 1, 2, and 4, because that means that now it's like, okay, there's an argument to be made that there still is no definitive version for 1, 2, and 4.
This kind of reminds me of that. This kind of reminds me of that XKCD meme where it's like, we have to make a new unified style for this game. And like, there's already 4 different styles. Let's make a new one to unify all of them. And it's like
there's now 5 conflicting styles.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like good news though for Final Fantasy 3, 5, and 6, which are for 3 it's good because now people will be able to play a 2D version of it, and hopefully gameplay changes can actually make that game a good Final Fantasy. For 5. I feel like it's easy to say that 5, this is going to be the definitive version. That's like out of all of them, that's the game that I feel the strongest about, that this will be the best version of 5 to play. It's easy to say that. 6, I'm not sure. Again, sprites aren't final, but looking at the simplified like kind of sprites of that they did show, and we haven't actually seen in-game like footage of that one yet. I'm not sure. Hopefully it turns out well, but yeah, I don't know.
I just hope they use that for like the world map sprites, and they would probably take like the more detailed sprites from their other games over.
So small.
I think my biggest fear of this pixel remaster is the fonts are going to look like shit.
Oh, it's going to be a mobile font for sure.
Yeah,
and UI.
Yeah.
I have a couple things to say. Mm-hmm. One, so like just some like notable like trivia about this collection. Once it releases, this will be the first time that Final Fantasy 1 and 2 are available on Steam on PC. Right now, those are like the only games in the series that aren't on PC, the only mainline, obviously, in like any form. Like you can't get them on PC. They're on mobile, but not PC. 2, James already said this. This will be the first time that the 2D version of Final Fantasy 3 gets an official release in the West in English. Because right now it's just the 3D version or the 3D remake now. And then the third thing I wanted to say was like this will also be the first time that Final Fantasy 4 is available in 2D, like the 2D version of that game on either mobile or PC, because only the 3D version is on those platforms, which is kind of weird to think about because like Final Fantasy 4 is imported a lot, but it's not on that version is not on any modern platform. So, and the other thing I wanted to mention
and I just realized this. Sorry, I wonder how they're going to handle After Years because both you have After Years 3D on Steam, and obviously Complete Collection on PSP had After Years as well. I'm going to assume this is just base Final Fantasy 4. It's not going to have any.
Did After Years get rebranded to say After Years 3D Remake?
Did it?
I don't know. Let me check.
What about Final Fantasy 4 Interlude?
The Interlude is dumb. I mean, After
Years.
Yeah.
Look. Let's be honest. Even Final Fantasy 4's story is dumb.
Yeah.
Well, it started pretty good until the end.
So, the other thing I wanted to mention is we had a lot of people like pointing this out as well. So these games do look to be like probably mobile developed games with like a PC port, which Square Enix has done a handful of those. Like you could even argue that like Saga Frontier Remaster almost looks like it's got a mobile-ish UI. But I wanted to point out just the Saga games, the Saga, Romancing Saga 2 and 3. Those games look pretty good in terms of like their pixel style. And there is a few things like, for example, the boss sprites move, and that's a little bit awkward. But otherwise, those games look pretty nice, and like they seem pretty respectful of the original pixel style. So it kind of feels that those were made by Art Piazza, how you pronounce it, and like it'd be nice if they kind of had a shot at doing this. But
it is so weird that like somehow like the tables have turned when it comes to like respecting legacy titles, where like the Saga series is like a step above like Final Fantasy when it comes to like revisiting like and remastering older titles in the series. It's
like we have the original 3 games just like in a collection on Switch, just out there. You've got Romancing Saga 2 and 3 remade on basically every platform under the sun, including the Vita. You've got Saga Frontier Remastered literally finishing a 20-year-old RPG that like had to be rushed out the door before it was like fully completed. It's just, and then you look at how they're showing off like the pixel remaster for Final Fantasy. It's just, okay, here's 5 seconds of footage. No, we're not going to say anything. It's only PC and mobile.
And they never sent us screenshots or anything. We literally just had to pull from the YouTube trailer.
There are no official screenshots. There are none.
And like, thankfully, the trailer, for whatever reasons, in 4K, so people were able to blow it up and grab some pretty decent screenshots that way. But it's like,
all right. So my theory is my headcanon is Kawazu is sabotaging the inside. He's like he's the one making sure that Saga
from his
gets
corner office in the basement.
He's like, fuck that. No one cares about that shit.
So yeah, it's just fun / frustrating to contrast. Here's 25 minutes of Guardians of the Galaxy. Here's 5 seconds of Final Fantasy.
At least I was happy.
I'm sorry, I don't know a better place to kind of mention this, but you aren't kind of doing article shoutouts, but I did put out a Final Fantasy V
that's right.
article like yesterday, and I feel like, well, first off, like 4-job Fiesta is going on right now, so it's like good timing. I didn't even realize it was going on when I pushed it. It's like, oh yeah, perfect.
It's fun. 4-job Fiesta is always great.
Yeah. Final Fantasy V, as I've said on numerous occasions, is a 10 out of 10 RPG. It is underrated, and more people should play it because it's one of the best Final Fantasies.
It's top tier for sure. By the way, I guess the After Years on mobile was not rebranded, so that means it's not part of the Pixel collection.
Yes. I mean, woo. While we're talking about some feature shout-outs, Alex Donaldson did write a Guardians of the Galaxy focused one, basically talking about how it reminded him of Mass Effect, because of course that's the angle he would take. But he's pretty amped for Guardians of the Galaxy.
There are
Not as amped as me.
yeah, there's definitely enough RPG elements that they showed off in Guardians of the Galaxy to justify us taking a look at it. There's leveling up. There's was there damage numbers? I already
Dialogue.
Yes, there was damage numbers.
Have we come to a consensus that damage floaters are like the top? That's the number one thing we look
Yes.
for.
Look, if damage numbers is enough for us to do stuff for like reviews, then that means I'm going to start writing up a review for Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart because it
All right,
has
do it.
unlocked.
It does, yeah.
Do it. Just write it up and pitch it to Alex. And just be like, you don't want this to go to waste. Just do it.
Look, you level up your guns. You level up your main character for more HP. Like, obviously, that's enough RPG elements, right?
Well,
Yeah,
hopefully,
that's right.
hopefully next week when we're back to normalcy, you'll be able to hear about you and I presume George's time with Ratchet and Clank.
Heck yes.
I'm not ready to do this next part of the Square Enix presentation.
All right, yeah, let's keep going on with Square Enix. All right, next one,
Uh-oh.
Babylon's
Man,
Fall.
this
Wait, what is that? Do you not want me to do that next? We're doing it. Babylon's Fall. All right.
No,
so
I
this-
mean, yeah, go for it. I'm never going to be ready to talk about this game. So, tell
okay,
us about-
so this is the first time we've seen this game, I believe, since Sony's State of Play 2 years ago, 2019. It was announced at E3 2018. Obviously, this is the big project from developer Platinum Games, and we didn't have a lot of details going in about this. This was supposed to be like the big blowout presentation for it, and we got a trailer with a decent amount of gameplay shown for this, but what do
Okay,
we
so
think? Yeah, go
the
take
new-
it away.
the new news.
what
for
I
the-
think is
No,
I'm
let's let
really
Josh take it away.
sorry.
Yeah, the new news for it was it's coming to PlayStation 5 alongside its previously announced PlayStation 4 and PC releases. They announced that this is a more multiplayer focused game. Like you can a team of 3 other people in this game. They confirmed that it is a live service game, and
Near Automata that will never end.
they're taking like closed beta test signups. I don't know if it's already ended for the sign up period, and the trailer for it, whether it was the stream or whether it was the direct feed version, didn't really matter. It looks messy. It did not have a good showing.
I feel like the prevailing opinion after this trailer, especially after no show for Bayonetta 3 at the Nintendo thing, spoilers, people are really, really worried about the state of Bayonetta 3 now after like seeing Babylon's Fall, and probably for good reason.
I wouldn't be not to skip ahead. I'm more worried about Platinum Games. I think like if there's any game that they're probably going to be like, nah, this one will be good. It'll be Bayonetta 3. But like, yeah, I'm kind of concerned about Platinum. But anyway, back to
I mean,
this
the thing,
dumpster wreck.
I don't know if I'm really concerned about Platinum Games. They know how to like survive. Like even just I forget it was last year or 2 years ago. They had this whole event surrounding the silver. They had like 4 like mystery announcements, and like one of the key ones, like they had a new studio in, I don't know if it was Tokyo. I forgot, but they're really expanding out. But it's just time and time again, you can point to a lot of different examples of like the project management or the way they handle projects is just so, it makes people worried, right? Especially when you think about like Cygames kind of booted them off Grand Blue Relink, and people keep saying, "Oh, that's fine. They already said they completed their task, and then that's why they were gone." Like you just don't like just take off their logo from the official website and say, "Oh, they're not working on it anymore." Like that's not normal, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I was hoping, when we got the announcement trailer, like the announcement trailer for Babylon's Fall, I still think I really liked it because it had like a lot of like a big lore on like the world building of that game, and like, okay, this seems interesting. Then we got like the trailer of like it showing off like gameplay, like, okay, this seems like your typical Platinum character action RPG, like you seem to have like a grappling hook. But then in this new trailer, it's too chaotic. Everyone has like floating weapons. It feels like a messier version of Nier Automata, but with like 4 players on screen, and like
It's just
I'm thinking
weird.
Godfall, man. More like a messier version of Godfall.
Yeah.
It's weird because its trailer is mostly gameplay, which is normally commendable. But I'm trying to put my finger on like why doesn't this seem appealing? It's like the camera is too close. It looks really stiff. Like a lot. Like, there's like multiple sections where it shows a guy like
I think it's just the
strafing with
colors.
his bow and arrow. Yeah, the colors are kind of like muted in this way that I don't think comes across well. It just looks kind of ugly. It's just nothing. And then like when they show like your team of you and 3 allies and in this live service game, which is kind of like, all right, now I got to take this under a different context of what this game plays like. I'm trying to have my brain fill in the blanks, and it just seems stiff. It just seems ugly. Go ahead.
Sorry. I love the irony where they said they pitched it as a Nier Automata that never ends, when literally the very first line in Nier Automata is everything that lives must die.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead.
yeah, I just feel like I got more details about this. So story-wise, you're a group of warriors called Sentinels, and then the special equipment behind their backs to have floating weapons are called Gideon Coffins, which is kind of a rad name for it. But other than that, we don't really know exactly how it'll all shake out. They're saying that it'll have a lot of post-launch game modes at no additional costs because
This will be a live service title through and through.
This I don't know what I don't know what I was expecting of Babylon's Fall, but it wasn't this. It definitely wasn't.
I have a dumb question, perhaps. Is it common for developers to actually specifically by name call their game a live service game?
Yes.
Okay.
No, I feel like
didn't know
it is.
I feel like usually they like try to avoid that, but they just came straight out and like, nope, this is live service.
This reminds me of that one presentation. I forgot which presentation it was. It was like there's a graphical showcase, and someone like it might have been the Horizon. I'm not sure, but someone visually said "God rays" in there, in like when they're showing off the graphical.
Oh, God rays, yeah.
It's really,
Oh God, what was that?
Like you don't really say that out loud. Like everyone knows what it is, but you don't say that to like the public and expect them to know what that means. Like okay.
I guess
that was
it's part
like
of the
a first-person
vernacular now.
game. I can't even.
I
remember
feel
what it
like
was.
this is really weird to say, but they, what? I'll just outright say it. Obviously, YouTube likes aren't everything, but I can't help but feel like they totally misjudged what people wanted from a Platinum Games follow-up to Nier Automata. Because if you look at Babylon's Fall's trailer on the Square Enix YouTube, you'll see that the like to dislike ratio is literally there's 1,000 likes, 5,200 dislikes.
Whoa! I didn't know it's that.
And just weird because in a lot of cases when you see that thing on any sort of public online space, there's some sort of context or something the developer said or some sort of other external factor. No, this is just
like a culture war or something.
Yeah,
or
like
another,
a cultural
right?
thing or something where it's there's exclusivity or something that's playing. Here it's just what the trailer showcased is not what people were expecting. It seems like this is a weird way to put almost a more pure dissatisfaction. It's you can't just sidestep it. People didn't like what they saw here generally.
Yeah, so I'm looking through all of even the reposts of the trailer on PlayStation and IGN and GameSpot, and the absolute best it's doing with likes to dislikes is it's a 40-60 split. More people do not like this footage. They do not like how the game looks.
Fair. No, I agree. Meh.
That's like the Platinum, I guess. I mean, we'll see how it goes. I don't know if this has a release date. They're doing their beta test in phases, but I don't think this actually has a firm release date.
I guess at this point we just hope that this trailer was a bad showing. That's all we can hope for.
Yeah.
Speaking of trailers that are bad showings, what a segue.
Good segue.
So here's the final major thing from the Square Enix event. And this is another one that people and insiders had teased going into it, and people had certain expectations. We got the announcement of Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin, a game from Team Ninja where you play as Jack in the world of Final Fantasy 1. So
You're gonna find chaos, and you're gonna kill them.
you're gonna find chaos. You're gonna combat chaos. You're going to eradicate chaos. You're going to defeat chaos.
No,
Name
I
villain
do
again?
have friends that call me Chaos, because when you add an S to the end of my name, you get Chaos.
Oh yeah,
right?
so his name's Chow. So you can turn
You
that.
kill Chow.
You are now chaos.
Shit, holy shit. Didn't even think about that. You're brilliant. Yeah, this is coming to PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One, and PC next year, and they launched a trial version on PlayStation 5. It was supposed to be playable after the presentation, and it did
But
come up, and
everyone's
people,
corrupted.
people downloaded
Yep.
it. It was, but then if you tried to launch it from your PS5, it would say, no, this demo is corrupt. It's like, okay. And then the Twitter account's like, yeah, we're working on it. It took them like more than 48 hours to like fix it. Or I forgot if it was like more than 48
Well, no,
hours.
I think
it
it was
was
10
just
days.
under 48 hours. I think it
Okay.
was like around like 36 ish, something
Well,
like
what can
that.
I say? The demo caused chaos.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, this is James and I played the demo PS5 demo version of it. Brian and Adam watched me do my playthrough of it, so we kind of do have a good understanding of what this game is like from that demo. It is definitely Neo Final Fantasy version. It's the gameplay is almost exactly like Neo.
And Neo, obviously being Team Ninja's big action game from the last couple of years, Neo 2 was my favorite game of last year. So I'm immediately like, when that comparison is evoked here, I'm like, oh, this game is somewhat like Neo. Like, tell me more.
Yeah, I really liked what I played of it in that demo version. I try to remember the other two party members. You have Jack, who's the main playable character.
Jed.
I forgot Jed, and was it
Ash.
or Jade?
Yes, I think
Okay.
it was Ash.
Okay,
Wow,
yeah.
must be pretty forgettable.
Your party members kind of suck, to be honest. They're kind of do nothing. The really cool things that really distinguish this from Neo. So there's a third person hack and slash type of game, very fast paced like Neo. The main things that really separate it is you can change job classes when you pick up the appropriate weapon from that demo. So throughout that demo, you start off with a great sword, so you're like this warrior class or knight class, and they all have like their own distinct skill tree. So the more you use them, the more job level ups you get, and then so that you can increase your attack power, new moves, and whatnot. And then throughout that demo, like you pick up like a mace, and then you unlock the mage class, so you can instantly switch to the mace, and then that'll turn you from a warrior to a mage instantly in combat. It even has like a system mechanic in the game when when you complete like a combo or mid combo, you can do a job stance or a job change mid combo, and it's kind of like stance switching in Neo, similar to that.
I was
Yeah.
getting Final Fantasy 14 vibes where you switch a weapon, you become a different class. So, I don't know.
Well, this doesn't play like FF14. It's not an MMO, and it's
I
not
know, but I'm just thinking like about that.
yeah. And then you also get like a spear, and then you unlock the dragoon class there too. And like in Neo, there's a loot system in the game. A lot of equipment drops of varying levels and stat buffs, and then some equipment might be better suited to another class and whatnot. So when you job switch in that game, it converts it to all your equipment to that job. So when you go to the main menu, there are separate like equipment slots for like warrior and mage. So when you switch between the mid combat, you equip those sets on the fly as well, which is really cool. I was quite impressed by what I played at the demo. There were a lot of interviews that came out. Nomura is on this project, and obviously one of the big quotes from that interview that was being passed around is like Nomura really wanted to convey, the story of an angry man in it. Jack does a good job filling out that role and whatnot. But I'm kind of curious, like hearing more. What did you think, James? Because you're the other one who did a hands-on with it.
I think just saying that it's almost identical to Neo is maybe selling it even a little bit short, because obviously there's a lot that's even outright like taken from Neo. Like if you look at the goblins and you've played Neo 2, it's like, oh, that's just using the same exact animations from Gaki's.
Mhm.
Or if you look at like the very first moment in the game when you start the tutorial and it's like, okay, I need to interact with this thing on the ground. Oh, the animation for the thing popping into my character is basically the exact same as Neo 2. That sort of thing. But the combat itself is close enough to Neo while also having its own flair, and I just really enjoyed it.
Yeah, go for it.
Like, especially the way that the Black Mage works, it's just really, really interesting. Like how you can do the different magic spells and like charge it up, and how it has different like impacts on the way the spell behaves. I find it really especially fascinating how much like those elemental resistances and weaknesses like can help you out. Like, I didn't even realize it until like after I'd already beat the final boss of the demo. But like when he buffs himself with his fire and ice things, if you use like water spells when he's on fire or fire spells when he's using ice, it like just takes him out of that phase change immediately, and it's like, oh wow, that's something.
Yeah, it's really cool that how they handled like the magic system in this game works, because like aside from your HP, there's like these two like MP like bars underneath it, and you can actually expand that maximum MP amount by like doing special finishers in combat. Or there's like this soul shield mechanic where you're inherently a blue mage, where in the sense that like there'll be like purple titled or named attacks coming at you, say like a fireball. If you like throw out that soul shield to absorb that fireball, you can actually like store that with you. So that's like your temporary like immediate spell that you can do. So you can throw back fireballs that you absorb through that soul shield. And like when you absorb attacks from soul shield as well, you increase that MP maximum MP amount. So there's kind of like some resource management as well. And when you die, you like get reset back to those 2 MP bars. So that's like the only thing that's the only penalty. So how this works out in action, especially like when you're in the mage class, the black mage class, is like, since at the moment with the current build, the very, very early pre-alpha current build that we have, playable till the 26th, I think, for PS5. So it's a time limited demo, and then they'll cut off access after that. The black mage, how you cast spells is like you channel them, so you start like casting them, but you have to stay in place. But then a circular bar will fill, and the more this bar fills, the higher tier spells will go. So let's say you're casting a fireball spell. If that circular bar gets to halfway, it'll turn to Fira, and if it goes all the way, it turns to Faraga, and it still only costs 1 MP bar. So you're really rewarded for like, if you're able to find a safe spot to like just channel a spell for like 2 seconds and fire off that spell, then like you're good to go. And I really like the way that the magic system works, because it feels weird at first, but it all clicks once you start messing around with it. And as James mentioned, like there's a lot of environmental interactions, not just with the boss itself, but like say there are enemies that are like in this grassy field. If you cast like a fire spell or like a big spell like Faraga, it'll set everything ablaze, and all those enemies are getting roasted. Or like when you do that soul shield spell, there are like some bombs in the demo that throw fire at you. If you throw fire back at them, you can actually accelerate their self-destruct process. So you're actually using the bombs against them to activate as like remote bombs in the middle of enemies, and that's really cool. That's a nice, like, that's such a Final Fantasy take on where you would take this.
The main takeaway that I've seen from both you and James playing it is like, man, this game is actually like surprisingly fun. Like the trailer was like memed to oblivion and back, and like was a really bad showing, honestly. And I think the English dialogue has a lot to be desired, specifically.
Well, even in the Japanese version was getting a lot of flack. It's because
really?
they just kept spamming like the keywords chaos. I'm
Do
here to kill chaos.
Do they do that in Japanese as well?
Yeah, they did that. Even the Japanese trailers are being memed.
So, but it seems like that got people interested in a way, in this weird, backwards, ironic way, to want to try the demo, and then people are actually finding it like engaging and fun and like cheesy as hell. But to hell with it. Like we talk about games that are just allowing themselves to be like silly or whatever. Like maybe this is one of those in its own way.
Yeah, I think in the interview, I forget if it was specifically with Nomura on this one, where they're saying like, this isn't meant to be like a canonical like backstory before what the events before Final Fantasy. It's like an alternate interpretation of like exploring that, but it's not meant to be like a part of the canon type of way. It's like, the story's gonna be is what it is. It's like
I just hope it's not isekai though.
It's
Yeah,
absolutely isekai. It's so isekai.
Yeah, like, I mean, we haven't seen it for sure yet, but it's like, oh, they're strangers in this land. They're wearing like just like regular clothes. It's like, I wonder what the twist is.
Well, actually, one interview that Alex actually put up from Nomura. This is a translated interview from Famitsu magazine, saying that the initial outfit for Jack and his allies are a hint to show that they're not of this world. So, if you're wondering why he looks
that's outright, that's a confirmation.
Basically. Because it's kind of silly because people like bagged the trailer for having him like dressed in a button-up T-shirt or whatever, but then like the first outfit that you get is like belts and zippers galore. Like that's a
like
number I know and love.
Within 5 minutes of that trailer, I went from like that default outfit to like having 12 belts on my dude. Like,
Which all that
joke.
tells us is that whoever put that trailer together obviously defeated Chaos in new default gear, like the God Gamer right there. So.
It's sure, I'll check it out then when it comes out next year. That's I liked what I played.
It's, I don't know, this immediately went from a game like this is garbage to wow, this is interesting to like I want to hear more. It's just what a weird trajectory.
I can see why a lot of fans don't like it, because it's like it's very like tonally it's very not Final Fantasy, No,
it's very so weird omissions. Sorry, go ahead, Adam.
All I was gonna say was like when Nioh 2 was coming out on PC, I kind of just decided on a whim to play Nioh in preparation for Nioh 2. I haven't actually played any Souls games, so I was just like, I know this is supposed to be Souls-ish, but maybe I'll like it, and I did. I liked it a lot, and it's like now I get to play a Final Fantasy that is, at least reminiscent of that in some ways. I'm really excited for it. I do believe also in an interview, I think this was Nomura as well, like they acknowledge that like not all Final Fantasy fans are going to be like into the Souls like Neo-ish stuff, so it's not going to be that especially the original Neo, it's not going to be that intense, I imagine, or there'll be ways that a more I hate to say more casual, but like someone who's not really into that Souls like genre will be able to enjoy this. They're aware.
So 2 notable omissions from the Square Enix Presents were no Final Fantasy 16 and no Forspoken. The running theory is that they are tied up in Sony marketing deals because they're going to be console exclusive, at least in the short term. So we might see those at some sort of Sony State of Play summer event at some point. But
also, no new thing on Neo. The world ends with you. All of them got like
boots of
3-second clips at like a montage clip, but they were all old footage.
That's sort of surprising because that's like a month out. You would think they would at least even just take the opportunity just to advertise it. Like, hey, we have literally like 100,000 or more viewers. We should at least, you had an opportunity.
Obviously, they only had enough time budget for one Nomura game.
Well, from what I heard from a friend, this thing is put like last minute. They're really behind schedule because of COVID, and everything was just just really behind. So I know it's like they got a lot of flack from the showing, but I guess people have lives. It's like it's just a video game. There's no reason to get upset. Over it.
It's kind of weird because people say like this. I saw some people like comparing like this is the worst E3 showcase ever, comparing it to like Nintendo 08 and Konami 09 or whatever it was. And it's just like, first of all, it is silly and fun to rank E3 showings, I admit, but like this is also the year where we get Neo: The World Ends with You and Nier Replicant Remaster and Final Fantasy 14 Endwalker. Like this is still a very strong year for Square Enix. It's just a bad showing for an E3 presentation. Partially might be due to publishing deals, meaning that they can't show 16 or Forsaken, presumably. We don't know for sure.
And hey, Guardians looks like amazing. Like,
I like how you have to get that last word in. Like actually, Guardians looks dope, dudes. I might just play Guardians just so I can like
Appease
Yes.
George.
Yeah,
You'll play the one that's
I wanna-
single
I
player
wanna find
only,
some-
but
I
no
wanna
one
find
would play
some
Marvel's Avengers with me.
I want to find some common ground with George. Just I'll play
Aw.
Guardians,
Yeah.
so we can go back and forth on the
George, we
so
already
we-
have a common ground. We play Guilty Gear Strive.
George, are you an influencer?
I haven't played Strive much yet.
Oh my.
Well, by next week we'll be heaven or helling it.
Do you have a land
You
cable?
have a
yet?
PC version. Just need a PC version.
No and no.
Okay, George, I'm going to ask you something, and I want to see your reaction to see if you've actually been playing Guilty Gear.
Oh.
Oh god.
Oh,
no.
Togeki?
Gatekeeping.
Do what?
There he is. It's like
No,
fake
does
fan.
that
no,
mean?
you
He's a fake
failed the
fan.
test.
Uh-oh.
Die to dolphins.
Oh, you mean May?
I get it.
I
Just to
kind of get it.
Why-
Why,
from
why-
context.
right?
why does this podcast just become bully George? Let's bully Adam for once in our lives.
Wait, what did I do?
I
Nothing.
when it comes to Caligula,
You play Strive.
I just feel like we
So,
always
Adam,
bully
how do
George.
you
gotta
feel
pick
about-
someone else.
Adam, how do you feel about the fact you're going to have to juggle between Shin Megami Tensei 5 and Labyrinth of Yomi come the fall?
Oh well, more we haven't talked about that yet.
that
Spoilers.
spoilers.
All right, let's move on. Okay.
Move on.
All right,
I was
so
there.
some final Square Enix things. They did show a trailer for the opening movie of Legend of Mana HD, which is obviously coming out very shortly. Pretty excited for that. We also did get here's for you, George. Marvel's Avengers: War for Wakanda expansion for Marvel is launching in August.
To be fair, it was an okay trailer. And I've said this every time, and I did eventually go back and play the Hawkeye stuff, but like Black Panther is one that I was actually like, yeah, I will play this and I want to play this. See how I feel when they actually release it. But
In August,
it looks okay.
just for you.
All right, so we will move on from the jam-packed Square Enix showcase to the PC gaming show, which last year we had a few surprises here. This is where Persona 4 Golden was announced as a surprise, quick PC launch. So people had hoped for maybe Persona 3, maybe Persona 5. Sega's going to be there. No, none of that happened. They showed off a trailer for Humankind. But we did get a few JRPG a few JRPG inspired announcements here. We got an announcement for an indie title that there's been a lot of indie titles that have been showcased through various places throughout the last 2 weeks. We can't talk about all of them. We just don't have the bandwidth. This one was one I think was a highlight. This is Sacrifire from developer Pixelated Milk. Yes, Pixelated Milk. Ignore how dumb that name is. This is a JRPG inspired game from a French developer. Is that right, Adam?
Polish.
Damn it. Polish. Called Sacrifire, releasing on PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Xbox Series, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and PC, everything. They've launched a Kickstarter campaign, which looks like as of this moment, it's almost nearing its pledge amount with 24 days to go. So on track to meet that. This was announced at the PC Gaming Show. It had its big kickoff trailer at the PC Gaming Show. It looks very much like kind of what Eiyuden Chronicles is, where it's like we're taking a game from what we loved growing up and we're going to make it ourselves now that fewer and fewer of these are being developed by their original creators. So it almost looks like Suikoden inspired or Golden Sun inspired. So this is just a really fun trailer, almost kind of like that other Kickstarter that kicked off last year, Sea of Stars. It's just kind of cool to see like, here's another project where these people grew up loving these games. So you know that these games are being developed like from the heart. Really nice trailer. If you haven't watched the just a minute Kickstarter trailer for Sacrifire, you should look at it. I think it looks really neat. I think it looks really cool. Adam put up a news post for some of the things they're shooting for with some of the features of this game. It's kind of got like that HD 2D sort of look. Obviously, it's not that engine, not the Octopath engine, but it's kind of got like that sort of stylistic flavor to it. So I don't know, really cool showing.
Octopath really had made ripples, huh? After it came out, you see a lot of like these sorts of titles like going for that HD 2D look, if not being developed on that engine already.
Mm-hmm. Oh, by the way, yeah, we've mentioned this name, but this will have a soundtrack by Motoi Sakuraba. What do you know? So,
Or at least They
Or they-
advertise his name.
Yeah,
it might
you
just
never
be,
know,
keep
if they'll just do
opening.
2 tracks. But yeah, his name is attached to
Yeah.
the project. So, this looks really cool. I don't know. It's since it's just now being kickstarted, this will probably be that Sea of Stars thing where this is like way out. It does say it's coming out next year, but that's if it's not even the Kickstarter's not even done yet. You know what I mean? So we've got a 2022 date listed, but I'm not hopeful on that. So that's the only one that I had listed as the JRPG sort of announcement from the PC gaming show. A few other things that were like Dodgeball Academia and Mechajammer.
Yeah,
Dodgeball looks cool.
Yeah, the Dodgeball Academia is being published by Humble Games, developed by Pocket Trap. It's a dodgeball RPG. Looks really fun, lively. I just wanted to shout that out. That looks really cool. The other one I wanted to shout out was Mechajammer, published by Modern Wolf developers, Veil Knot Studios. They describe it as a cyberpunk horror CRPG. I guess it's a real-time tactics with turn-based controls, whatever that means, but it has a really cool look to it. Those were just the 2 quick indie RPG shout-outs I wanted to do because they stuck out to me, and I'm like, that's pretty cool. I don't know where this was also, but the Death Trash really stuck out to me too. It's like an isometric pixel. It kind of looks like older Fallout games, but
Yeah, it does. I was actually going to say it looks like Fallout 1 or 2.
Yeah.
So after the PC gaming show, we move on to the Future Games show. And the Future Games show didn't have a lot to talk about for our site's purview, but it did have Xseed Games was there. So a lot of what we're going to basically all of what I have listed here came out of their presence at the Future Games show. First of all, we talked about this at the last time we had the podcast. Chow had imported Rune Factory 5 from its Japanese release earlier this month. It has been delayed for its Western release until 2022. No date, just early 2022. So we did get a new English trailer for Rune Factory 5. We did also learn that Rune Factory 4 Special will be ported to PC, Xbox, and PS4. It was originally just on a Switch and then 3DS for the original version. So
cool. That a lot of people really like Rune Factory 4 Special. So
I can vouch for that. Rune Factory is a great franchise. Maybe this is the perfect spot to hop in, Josh.
Hey, you know what? Now that it's available to more platforms, it'll probably perform a lot better. I'll do it.
Is this the first time it's been on PC?
I think so.
Yeah, it is actually.
That's kind of cool.
The sales for this series is kind of hilarious, though. It's like as soon as they added the female protagonist for 4, sales literally doubled because of it, right? So, and now we got new platforms, and it's like, well, it's like we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, hopefully it does well. Hopefully this will be the big this is where the Rune Factory really expands its audience. Hopefully they market it well and whatnot. That's exciting. Did they give it a date for the ports?
I think it's late this year. No dates, I don't think.
Let me see. It's a ton of dates because. All right, let me just read this out. Rune Factory 4 original release for 3DS in 2012, 2013 in North America, 2014 in Europe. Special released in 2019, and then the ports released for the Switch on the 20th February 2020. That's a lot of dates. Coming fall 2021. There you go. That's the answer you're looking for. So just this fall at some point this holiday season, it'll show up on all the other platforms and PC. And then also, while Xseed was present at the Future Games show, Story of Seasons, Friends of Mineral Town. This is the Harvest Moon game. Harvest Moon in air quotes. Well, not even in quotes. It's the Harvest Moon developed game, which I released last year. Will release for PlayStation 4, Xbox Series, and Xbox One later this year.
PlayStation 5.
Yeah, that's fall.
Well, I mean, not PlayStation 5, it's PlayStation 4. I think
it's obviously by default it's going to be playable on PlayStation 5 via the PS4.
Yeah, that's another fall release.
Plus considering how the game is, I guarantee it will be native 4K on PS4 Pro, so you won't really get much from a PS5 version. So
the only reason it's listed down for Xbox Series specifically is because at the end of that trailer, those are the logos: PlayStation 4, Xbox Series, and Xbox One. At the end of that trailer,
So you'll be able to
Yeah.
play Rune Factory 4 or Story of Seasons on most consoles this fall. Just Story of Seasons not listed for PC. So this was at this point we're like early last week or early this previous week, late last weekend. So between that slew of events on Sunday into Monday, there was a few like independent announcements that were made like alongside these different publishing or other platform showcases, but independent from any of them. The first of which was something that I know James is going to want to talk about at length from CyberConnect 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is a game that we've known about for a while that has been kind of dormant for the last couple of years. This is Fuga, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Fuga Memories of Steel. So it is launching for PlayStation 5.
Melodies of Steel.
Oh, damn it. Fuga Melodies of Steel. Fuga Melodies of Steel. Releasing for PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Xbox Series, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and PC in July. So not that far away. So I will allow James to talk about this one because he has been waiting for this one for a while.
For a very specific type of CyberConnect 2 fan, this is a big deal because they have this series called Little Tail Bronx that has been around since the PlayStation 1 with Tail Concerto. And it seems like it's doomed to take literal decade-long breaks between games because Solitorobo Red the Hunter, which was the DS sequel to it, came out in 2010, and 2011 it was localized. So that was over 10 years between the original game and the sequel. And now we're finally getting the follow-up to that 10 years later.
Yeah,
so
it is worldwide simultaneous.
Yeah, it's crazy. So actually, just a shout, right before we started recording the podcast, I did put up an interview with the creative director on the project, Johan Girito, or again, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that last name. He's, I think, French-Canadian. He's working at their Fukuoka studio. He's the creative director on the project, so I asked him a couple of questions about the game, the status of the self-publishing, and basically stuff about the studio, because, like, obviously this is not just a sequel for a series that people have been waiting for, even if it's niche as hell, but it's the first self-published title that CyberConnect 2 is going to be putting out, and they hope that if this does well, they can continue with self-publishing, because it might be easy to forget, but when this was announced, it was part of a trilogy of self-published projects that they wanted to do in this self-titled like trilogy of vengeance. So very big announcement for CyberConnect 2 as a studio, because again, if this does well, that means that they can kind of separate themselves from the licensed anime game pit and really start like pushing more titles that they want to do that they don't have to go to a publisher for. So it's like I hope it does well. The game itself looks great. Yeah, I played it at Anime Expo 2 years ago and it was great then. Lots of changes, but I'm still really pumped for it. And it's they're
kind of like in a similar situation that Platinum Games was in when Platinum Games was kind of confined to like licensed, putting out licensed games here and there, like Legend of Korra, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and that whole thing. I really am like rooting for CyberConnect 2 to really knock this one out of the park. Like the trailer that they released looks really, really good. Like, you know, I'm very impressed with what they've done to this game. It looks very polished. It might be very tragic. It's looking to be very tragic, but I'm rooting for them. You know, I'm gonna pick up this game. I'm gonna play it and hopefully enjoy it.
And I mean, literally no excuse not to give it a shot if you're listening to this, because it is literally going to be on a platform that you own. It's worldwide simultaneous. It's localized in English, French, Italian, Spanish, and both traditional and simplified Chinese, with German and Korean localizations coming later. That's also something I got information about in the interview. But it's like the game itself is it's an RPG. It's an RPG, but it's fascinating in the sense that the way that combat works is that you're in this tank called the Tarinus or something like that, and you have 3 different guns, and you have to assign different NPCs to each gun, which gives them different attributes. And it's like sort of a rock, paper, scissors dynamic with, some certain guns are effective against certain enemies. And it's, if you want to hear about how the gameplay works, again, it's a bit outdated. I did have hands-on with it at Anime Expo, again, 2 years ago. A lot of things have changed. Back when I played it, it was supposed to be a roguelike experience. That's no longer the case. It's just a regular RPG, which is, for some people, that'll be great. It'll be interesting to see how it turns out. But again, I agree. It looks fantastic. The art style is great. They've got Leanne back for the opening theme, which you can hear in the trailer. It sounds amazing. CyberConnect 2's always had like a great sound team. I'm just really excited for this.
Yeah, I think you and I, when we saw it at Anime Expo 2 to 3 years ago, like we were just very like dazzled by the way they presented it at that one panel. And it's like it's a very much a game, a passion
project. Yeah.
I'm like vicariously excited just by hearing how excited you are. Like, should I be excited? These guys are so excited. So
I mean, yeah, I'm really hoping it's awesome, dude. It's good. It's good stuff.
Like I'm a little over a month away, so kind of like it comes back after being dormant for a few years, saying like, "Here you are."
I'm so excited for it, but the one thing is that it's just, I'm glad it's coming so soon. But man, they probably chose the worst possible time to release it. Like, July 29th, like right around, like July is a war zone for JRPGs. You've got and JRPG adjacent stuff, because you got Crest Tales, you got Ace Attorney Chronicles, you got Monster Hunter Stories 2, you've got the Switch and PC ports for East 9, you got the Switch port for like Silver Case, you've got Neo, The World Ends With You Neo. It's just like,
that one, not Neo, like other Neo, like
just
Twayway.
So many games coming out next month. It's just, I'm so glad it's coming soon. And it's a good thing it's coming out on all these platforms, because that means that it will have a broader reach. But it's like, man, if it's good, I am just you're not going to hear me shut up about this for the next 2 months.
Looking forward to it. Another announcement that kind of showed up early in the week, independent of any other event, was the announcement and shadow drop of a Fire Emblem-like. This is Freedom Games have announced and released Dark Deity, a strategy RPG on Steam, available on Steam, which is very heavily Fire Emblem inspired, developed by developers Sword and Axe. Very fitting. So this kind of came out of nowhere for me. I don't know if this had shown up like on a Kickstarter or Indiegogo at some point earlier or whatever. To me, like Fire Emblem is one of my favorite series, and I really want to get to this one. I haven't bought it just yet, but it is available now, basically. So this kind of came out of nowhere that evening, and it looks like there's been some Fire Emblem likes that look like really like cheaply or shoddily made, or they just don't like sell me on their art style or whatever. Where this looks like it's very evoking specifically like the GBA gameplay art with like the sprite work and things like that. So hey, that's kind of feels like a theme of this podcast, because we've seen it for Eiyuden and we've seen it for Sacrifire, and now we're kind of seeing it again for this Dark Deity. So I don't know, really cool. Available now. You can already get it on Steam. It has a launch discount of $19.99 or $20 USD instead of $25. But I don't know, looks really neat.
Yeah, I want to get around to it too. When I saw the trailer for, like, oh, this is like the thing that stuck out to me.
One interesting thing about this game is that the main person behind it, he's young. He's like 23 years old. So like 5 years older than George. And
I knew that was coming.
So did I. My ears perked. I went, yeah, here it goes.
Young. Oh, that's me. I'm young.
I'm sorry. I really am. But anyways, Silicon Era did an interview, and like a 23-year-old, like the GBA games came out how long ago? Like when this guy like
2003
was like
for
an infant.
Yeah.
Right. Or like a toddler. So like he personally doesn't have like nostalgia for those games in terms of like it's not like they were games he played when at release when he was growing up. But he said in his interview basically that, you know, he just really liked the art style and that they don't make games with that sort of art style anymore. So I'm curious, like, how well it's going to evoke those, like,
Because
that style of game.
Just because he was so young, but it looks like really faithful to the art style. There's sometimes where it looks like a cheap mobile knockoff or whatever, and you could argue like the portrait art is a little bit different. It doesn't quite have that same style. I forget who did the portrait art for the GBA Fire Emblem games, but the just the sprite work in battle, which this trailer that we have up on our website shows off, just like really like looks like this could have been a DS, what the DS Fire Emblem games could have looked like, I feel like. So, and there's some really interesting ideas on here where it shows like a mage caster riding a flying carpet or things like that. So it's not just like diet Fire Emblem. Like it seems like it has some interesting ideas put into place here and like some different races other than humans. So in fact, I might just like go to Steam and just put this in my cart. Just like I keep putting it off, and I'm like, this is something I think I really.
You're gonna forget for sure if you do. If you don't do
I need to peel myself away from Phantasy Star New Genesis. Play something else. So maybe this is what will break me out of that. It'd be cool to have some like real impressions from this game and see like, is it actually good or does it just look really nice? Because it looks really nice. We can tell you that much. And then finally, this announcement, we were expecting to show up at E3 because we actually got like the press information early, but we didn't know where it would show up. And it turns out it didn't really show up anywhere. It was just kind of announced. And I'm talking about THQ Nordic and Piranha Bytes announcing Elex 2 for PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Xbox Series One, and PC. So Elex 2, made by the same developers as Elex and Gothic, we had already known was in development from like internal documentation from Piranha Bytes. It was never formally announced anywhere, but they had hired people to work on it as early as like 2 or 3 years ago. This was like a known quantity, but we didn't know when it would show up. They released a reveal trailer for it along with some screenshots, and I'm kind of two minds of it. Like I liked Elex a little bit. I reviewed it for the site. I think I scored it like a 7. Like it's very uneven. It's like the absolute pinnacle of Eurojank, which we say endearingly most of the time. But it was one of those games where it's like it has some really awesome quest structure, some really awesome like dialogue and world interactions, but some very, at least in my opinion, terrible gameplay. Like it was not fun to play. But it was one of those things where it's like if they had a chance to iterate on it, I really could be excited about it. So the fact that Elex 2 was announced made me personally really excited, except for the fact that this trailer is dog shit. Like it is a terrible trailer. It is like a trailer out of 2008. It's got like metal. I don't know if is it metal or is it too shitty to be considered metal? I don't know, but like very shitty like rock music. I don't know, mock rock and metal. Be pedantic all you want, but it's got very shitty music. Whatever your styling is, played over like this cinematic trailer that's just like meant to be like cool and edgy, just to like the nth degree. And I'm just like, it did not. Maybe it's just my taste or something, but it did not sell me at all. You've got this bald protagonist from the PlayStation 3 era, like slicing through enemies under the different like factions that are in this game. Like one of them is like future tech, and one of them's like roguish, and one of them I think is like more like barbarians or spellcasters. And it's just bad. Just it's a bad trailer. I'm glad the game is announced. I'm excited for it. I feel like it could have some really cool parts to it. It's just, this is a terrible trailer. Just Jesus Christ. Did I just deflate the room? Elex 2 is coming out.
I mean, the only time I ever interacted with Elex was like I took up a meeting, an E3 meeting of the first one. I'm like, yep, that's definitely a Eurojank game. That's you're talking like Toddy, like you could do this. You could probably do everything. I was like, all right, dude, rock on. So that's my only thing with the Elex. It's like I don't really know much about it outside of that one meeting.
So Elex 1 at a very high level, it reminds me of Fallout New Vegas, specifically in terms of quest design, where you have a wide world with different players interacting on the world, factions you might call it, where like certain people are vying for power, and you eventually have to like determine an allegiance. And it's not like this game where it's just like the game is actually punishing in a sense where like if you partner up with the future faction, you can no longer like you can no longer be amicable with the other people of the world.
You have to pick side. There's like no neutral path or middle path.
There is no like golden mean where you're just like, if you do this, everyone loves you and you're just the hero of everyone. Like that's not allowed. It's one of those things where like if you do something, there are consequences in terms of people will hate you for it.
Nice.
People will have different philosophical differences. And that's the thing about Elex that I really liked. And the trailer does show that a little bit. It shows like a key NPC from presumably 3 new factions where like there might be certain ways you can kind of like weave your way through a story where you like ally with one or you pretend to ally with another. Obviously, this is a really hard thing to like speculate about where exactly like what the quest design is. But that's the thing that like I hope that they end up doing that well. But this trailer is just bad. So sorry.
So since you have like the most experience with Elex 1 out of anyone of us here, like what are like 2 or 3 things you hope that like Elex 2 really nails, or like what should be the focus of it?
They really have to nail how the jetpack feels to use both in exploration and combat, because that was a big like factor of Elex 1. But like I remember Elex, it's been a while since I played it, so my memory is not perfect, but I remember like the jetpack felt like really gimmicky. Like you couldn't use it for very long. It wasn't ever useful to use in combat. There are certain areas where it's like I remember at one point in Elex 1 where you get like a ship. You get like I forget if it's like a spaceship or if it's just an aerial craft. And like the game is so janky where like if you engage your jetpack while underneath it, you just clip through it. You just like fly through the ship.
Nice.
And I'm just like, well, like I'm okay like suspending my disbelief in certain places like that, but like I'm like, come on, really? Like you couldn't even like implement collision with the ship?
No, you're just doing what Link did in that Breath of the Wild 2 trailer. Spoilers.
Oh, okay, but
you're doing that.
And I remember Elex 2, it really felt like my Elex 2 character, I made like the classic like barbarian type. Like I forget what the faction's called. I feel like people are gonna like call me out, and like my memory of Elex is not very good. But there's like
all the Elex fans coming out.
Yeah, all 5 of you. But like there's like a faction. There's a faction of people that they're like shamanistic and they like believe in the power of nature and they like disavow the use of tech or whatever. And that's the people I allied with. So when I was in the tech area, the people that had all the future technology and all the drones and laser gates or whatever, like I had to be really careful. And then like I hope that's something that Elex 2, like if they say like, oh, if you do X, Y, and Z, you can please everyone. Like I hope they don't allow that. That was such a striking point of the first game, which that's the thing about making choices in a Western styled RPG feel meaningful. Where if it's not just like, oh, this is just a flavor thing, it doesn't matter who you pick, the ending's always the same. Like I hope they don't do that. So this wasn't announced with any release date or anything. It was just formally unveiled with the cinematic trailer. So plus some screenshot, which by the way, the screenshots of this game don't look that nice. It looks like a last gen game, like an early last gen game, which I wasn't ever expecting Elex 2 to look like like a world beater. Like it's a small Piranha Bytes, it's like 50-ish people, but it just doesn't like, it looks almost like it could be like an expansion pack to the first game, at least based on the media screenshots, which is like fine, I guess. I just like, I'm not the sort of person that like really puts a lot of emphasis in like graphics in general. Like I played Fallout 1 or 2 years ago and it had a great time, but I was just expecting this game to look nicer after it had been like under wraps for so long. And then like one of their pictures is like Jax, that's the name of the main character, like in his jetpack flying over like this barren wasteland that looks awful. It's like foggy with like no textures, and I'm just like, this is what you pick for your media screenshot. Like it's just,
it's okay. We weren't expecting with Elex 2, but Elex 3, they're gonna
yeah. Elex 3 will be awesome. It just doesn't sell the game very well. It's just like, okay, like all right.
Yeah, I'm seeing the screenshot now. Oh yeah, that's the good stuff.
But yeah, Elex 2. Maybe once we see some gameplay, I'll be actually like really excited for it. Because right now I'm kind of like whelmed. I'm very whelmed. All right, so now we head into some of the last days of E3. We'll open up with Capcom's showing, which I did not watch this. And from what I heard, this show was almost as terrible as Square Enix. I heard
this could have been sent in an email, to be honest.
Yeah. I don't know. It's like, isn't like they had to pay a lot of money to get into like E3 shows?
Oh yeah, it felt like a thing like It felt like they just get an E3 slot just for future years. That's what it felt like.
The only thing that was even close to being an announcement here was Resident Evil 8 Village is going to get DLC, which, no shit.
Yay.
Hey, man, they also said that that Reverse multiplayer for Resident Evil is coming out next month. Hell yeah.
Yay.
Wait, so did they give you any details on the DLC, or just that it will have some?
No, it's
Just that it exists.
it's in development now after fan demand.
All right, so we also we have marked here that, oh my god, Monster Hunter Stories 2 Wings of Ruin got another trailer, and it's coming to Switch, and it's getting a demo.
The 50th trailer for
how many trailers were like, how many unique trailers did we get just last week?
It felt like 6.
It was at least 3. It was at least 3. I want to say maybe 4.
All right, so okay. All right, so I'm actually going to go through, because I'm curious about this. This Adam posted the story intro trailer May 20th. Okay. We got another trailer on May 26th, a week later. That is returning characters. Then the Summer Game Fest trailer on June 10th. Then the Switch demo trailer on June 14th. So 4.
Is that all? Is that all the
I don't know if that's all of it, but
there was also one in the Nintendo Direct and one for Capcom's own stream. So.
Oh yeah, I missed the Nintendo Direct. Adam has posted like almost all of these. So Adam, you are a trooper. How many like unique screenshots? How many unique thumbnails he has to come up with for all these trailers? But anyways, it got another trailer.
God bless them for the big marketing push.
It's weird because like a few weeks ago, I was excited about this game. I thought it was interesting, but it's just like I think there is such a thing as like oversaturation. Like, okay, I've seen you cut up your same cinematics like a dozen times. I'm no longer interested in seeing another trailer for your game. So just like less is more. I don't know. Let's move on to something more positive. We did also get some details about the Great Ace Attorney, the finally getting the localization for that. I don't know much about the series, but James, what did we see here?
Wait, hold on. Before we move on to this one, did you mention that a demo is coming for Stories 2?
I mentioned it very briefly. Yes, it is getting a Switch demo.
Okay. And save data transfer to the full game from that demo. And I forgot, did they mention a PC one? Because this is getting a PC release as well.
I think it's either not coming to PC, the demo, or if it is coming, it's going to be a launch day demo instead of the early demo for Switch.
It's a launch day demo.
Okay.
And then
they probably don't want people like digging through files or whatever.
Yeah, that's probably it.
The only other that mention that they did for Monster Hunter Stories 2 for that presentation was there's going to be an update on July 15th that adds the Palamute from Monster Hunter Rise as a Monstie in that game.
Which apparently that means that Palamutes, the doggos from Monster Hunter, are hatched from eggs.
Lore's too much. That's fucked up.
So
yeah,
the Great Ace Attorney trailer was basically just an overview. Basically just saying, here's Great Ace Attorney. Here's what's new about this game. Here's like the general gameplay loop. Nothing really
solved the case for us.
Yeah, nothing too big. Well, that wasn't solving the case. It's like one very short section.
Yeah, that's why it has a little warning that says minor spoilers ahead.
Yeah,
I've never seen like a trailer do that.
But anyways, more. I'm glad that they are pushing Great Ace Attorney because it is like I've played the first one, but like everything I've heard is that the second one's even better. And like in my opinion, of all the Ace Attorneys I played, Great Ace Attorney is the best one. So these are very, very good. And you don't need to have played the original trilogy or any of the games to play Great Ace Attorney. So if you're thinking of getting into the series,
there's
only $40 for 1 and 2. It's only $40. That's a lot of Great Ace Attorney. Yeah. Just I don't even need to see the localization. Buy it.
And it's coming out in like 2 weeks.
Soon.
All right, now we finally move on to basically the bookend for most of this, not everything, but the big Nintendo Direct classically showing up on the Tuesday, and that's what they always do, right? I always feel like Nintendo's always like pulling in at the end, but usually with a really good showing.
Yeah,
and
they're usually on the first day of E3. I don't normally.
Yeah, I have fond memories of getting to the press center at the convention center and like watching the Nintendo Direct before like actually starting up the first day of E3 and like going to my first appointment and stuff like that.
Yeah, because usually
Very
like the
fond
Nintendo
memories.
E3 is like Tuesday a.m. and then as soon as it ends, it times in near perfectly with like the opening of the convention center. So it's always like a cool little bookend of like the press event part of the showing. So Nintendo Direct, not much in the way of like leaks or anything going in. There are a few like insiders say like not to expect much or like keep your expectations in check, which is kind of weird because they ended up showing a few things that were like incredibly surprising. And actually,
Obviously, those insiders were not weebs.
Apparently not. But I'm going to open up with one thing that I thought was like something that I did not see anyone expect this or know about this or speculate about this or had any reason to think that this would show up. And I'm talking about Advance Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp. So basically a remake of the first two games originally appeared on the GBA for Advance Wars. So this is coming out in December this year with new models, new music. Just, did we ever think we would see Advance Wars again?
I was
I thought it was
away,
completely dead.
Yeah.
I mean, also, can we appreciate how perfect a name Reboot Camp is?
So cheeky.
I just got
this is being developed by
got that. Oh my god.
George. It's being developed by WayForward. I think there's some assistive intelligence systems, but the primary developer is WayForward on this one. I could kind of get like, a lot of people are somewhat down at the look of this game because they've got the 3D models. It doesn't preserve like the pixel look from the GBA versions, but I think it's okay. I'm just more happy that the series is alive again more than anything.
Right.
I'm willing to take it. It's Advance Wars is such an excellent strategy RPG series. I'm so excited. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it when they showed it off. I'm like, what the fuck? Are they actually fucking doing this? Like, I think
the animations for the models, like before they do like their special abilities, I've only played Advance Wars 1, and it's been a while, so I don't remember much. But I remember like different characters could like affect like the weather with like their super attacks. Like one of the antagonists had like a snow ability or something like that, and like whenever you like would interact, whenever you would like engage those, it did like a quick like anime like preview for it. And like those, it shows a few of those sorts of things here, which I think look really nice. The only things that I think look a bit silly like are the portraits in battle. Like the art style is a bit different from what I remember.
And it's kind of clashes.
It's not that it's bad, it's just that it's different. Like that's not what I remember, but I also have this like I kind of had this expectation what Advance Wars looks like that maybe a new player wouldn't even have. So I have seen remasters with more unfaithful, I guess, or garish like clashing ourselves in this one. Like for whatever reason, this one I look at it and yes, it looks different, but it doesn't bother me as much as it has in some other cases.
I think it captures the original feel, and I think that's the thing it's going for, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I think just overall, I'm pretty satisfied. The Advance Wars, the whole series has some of like the best like mission design like in strategy RPGs. That it's so varied. It's man, I couldn't believe it. I'm really happy. I'm really happy about this. Just like you said, no one expected. This would be the last thing on my mind. This is like if you had like a bingo card for this would be like a joke inclusion. Like you're not gonna make another Advance Wars. No, you're talking about.
Yep.
But if anyone who has like any listeners who have like a passing interest on like strategy RPGs and like never like engage with the series whatsoever, definitely pick this up. You will love it.
A few of the other showings in the Nintendo Direct we did expect. Another thing that we didn't expect that we don't have much time to talk about because it didn't really fit our purview, but I will mention is Metroid Dread. Looks badass. Just like
looks amazing. Yeah. So keen for that.
If only I could find a copy of the special edition.
I can't believe that we live in a timeline where the developer that made the last original 2D Metroid game and the last original 2D Castlevania game are the same developer.
So he's referring to Mercury. Is it Mercury Steam or Mercury Stream?
Yeah, Mercury Steam.
Steam, and they made the Castlevania Lord of Shadows 1, 2, and the Mirror of Fate like interquel. They did Samus Returns, and now they're also doing Metroid Dread. I know that I don't remember the details, but I do know that there was a lot of like weird publishing like hijinks with the Lords of Shadow with like some behind the like development crunch issues or whatever. So it really seems kind of cool that they've gotten back on their feet with like this niche by producing 2D Metroid games, which Samus Returns. I feel like I haven't played that game, but the only real knock against it that I've heard was that it was just so late in the life of the 3DS that kind of like overshadowed it. Like at that point, the Switch was on the horizon.
Yeah, I think that's like
There were
both.
there,
That and WarioWare Gold were the last 3DS games I ever played, I think.
And I think the other problem was they locked up some content with the Amiibos. I think that was the other.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
there was some. Basically, the fusion mode, hard mode, was locked behind if you had specific amiibos, which, let's just say I'm really glad that they confirmed that the only amiibo functionality they have is you'll get an extra heart or whatever, and an extra like missile upgrade. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, that's
That
whatever.
is-
yeah.
Much better than the bullshit that they had in Samus Returns, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we shouldn't probably go too deep into this, but I just think it's really cool. Like the mechanic in this one, like the gimmick in this one is like there's like this robot. I forgot what it's called. It's kind of like the nemesis
Emmy.
of the game.
Yeah.
Emmy, yeah. So it's kind of like Resident Evil, where it's like it follows you around and it's like kind of impervious to like what like your normal shots and your missiles and whatnot. So
Also, I think the coolest thing about this announcement is, first off, this is Metroid Dread, the project that's been on and off development in Nintendo since Metroid Prime 2, where it was outright teased in-game 19 years ago. This is crazy that it's
Yeah.
finally coming out, that it's actually real, that they even outright confirmed that, no, yeah, this has been in, like, on and off development for over 15 years now. It's like absolutely bonkers.
It's also
absolutely
the
bonkers.
I know caring about the overarching Metroid storyline's a bit silly because they're pretty much self-contained and story light, but this is like the first thing that pushes past, I believe, Metroid Fusion in the timeline since 2002. And it's weird
outright
because
said,
go ahead. No, you
They've
go ahead.
outright said that this is finishing up the story arc that's that the series has had for basically the entire timeline. So that's interesting.
And
that's why
the
it's
thing,
called Metroid 5.
one thing that I've learned recently is that I had always thought of the Metroid Prime games, because they were developed by a different studio, Retro Studios, as being kind of like almost like a filler arc in the middle. But apparently Samus Returns does kind of in a way like canonize it. I don't know how, and I don't really know why, but apparently like that just learning about that, and I know caring about the Metroid story is a bit silly, but it just seems weird. Like now it kind of seems like there's this unification where it's like you've got classic Metroid, you've got Metroid Prime from 20 years ago, and now we've got a new classic Metroid, and then we got Metroid Prime 4 whenever we see that again. Hint, it wasn't this week. So just it feels like there's just like a pulse on the series now, where before it kind of felt like they didn't know what they wanted to do with it. They don't know what Samus Returns was a remake, so it was kind of like safe in that respect. But now we've got like we had this one project that was being troubled development that was recently like pulled back under Retro Studios banner, and then Metroid Dread out of nowhere, bam! Like all of a sudden, it feels like Metroid is I don't want to say like Metroid is a major Nintendo property again, but it was almost at the point where you could almost like drop it off the list, where it's like don't care about Metroid anymore. But
well,
go ahead.
Actually, I'll go a step further and say, yeah, it is a major Nintendo franchise, because check Nintendo's like Twitter avatar and their like banner on Twitter. Check like the game is releasing about as close as it can be to be Nintendo's holiday title for this year. It was the headliner project that they had from E3.
That's true.
Well, no, it's no longer. Now they're doing Mario Golf because that's coming out next week. But like when they announced it, they had Samus as their Twitter avatar. They had Metroid Dread as their Twitter banner. It's their holiday title. Like they are treating it like a major franchise. So
coming October 8th, I think, and yeah, they have like a really fancy collector's edition and everything. They were really pushing it hard. So I'd like they really wanted to try to do something for its anniversary this year. I think this is.
I think they've
now,
succeeded.
here's the question: does Metroid Dread? Is there any chance it has damage floaters? Can we cover it?
I wish.
Damn it!
Is Metroid Dread going to be a Metroidvania?
We have covered Metroidvanias. I feel like, look, we have covered plenty of them in the past.
But you need
An
the
argument
Vania
could be
elements.
made. Yeah.
Let's just
Not just the
pretend that
Metroid elements.
health has numbers. They use numbers for health.
Metroid.
Energy 99.
Yeah,
RPG right there.
All right, I fully expect to see a big Metroid Dread feature on the site this holiday. But yeah, exciting game. Sorry to get off topic, but man, what a surprise. Okay, here's a game that we expected to show up, or maybe not expected, but like was likely to show up, that I think, despite not being a surprise, still, I think, in a lot of ways stole the show. And I'm talking about Shin Megami Tensei 5. So, big headliner of the show. It had a big new trailer, both on the English side and a unique one on the Japanese side of the Nintendo Direct, both showing some different things. We got a new look at basically the final form of the protagonist once they partner with the, I don't know if it's even a demon in this case, but the person that he holds hands with in the original announcement trailer. Just lots of looks at what the game's style is, what its combat looks like, a lot of the new demon designs, which are being built from the ground up for this game. Just lots to chew on for Shin Megami Tensei 5.
Question: is that protagonist a guy or a girl?
It's a guy,
It's a guy, yeah.
but it's very like an androgynous styled protagonist, which I think is actually really striking.
I just love that one tweet that blew up like almost immediately after the trailer, where it was like subtitled, "Am I a boy? Am I a girl?" Everyone thinks I'm hot. I don't know, but everyone thinks I'm hot, so everybody's gay.
Yeah, but it's just like a really stylistic trailer. I think especially the Japanese PV for it shows a lot more of like this of the pure gameplay. The demon designs I think look amazing. Just it looks like really good for a Switch game, just like stylistically and just technically. It just, I don't know. There's something about this trailer that I just think it's a really strong. We talked a lot on this podcast about bad trailers. This is a good set of trailers here.
Like, I don't know, like, how can you sell this here to a casual person? I was like, let's just say I would never was into Shin Megami
here I am.
Tensei,
Pitch it to
right?
me. Sell it to me.
Yeah, and it
Make
could somehow
make the main character sexy.
it's like, wow, you're gonna team up with demons. Now you're gonna team up with angels, and you're gonna team up and fight demons. Like, how can you sell something like this?
I mean, it's pretty easy, to be honest.
I was pretty moody on it. Like I said to you guys after the Direct, because I was expecting Sora for Smash, Nintendo Switch Pro, and that didn't happen, obviously.
Are you not excited for Kazuya and Smash? What the hell? Wow.
Not really. But like,
not
personally,
probably
like,
the
Ryu kind
channel
of fills
name.
that space for me.
It's okay, George.
Yeah, so, like,
it's okay, George. At least you're somebody that appreciated Tyrion in Smash, right? Right?
Wow.
Well, this is the thing. Overall, for me, Nintendo was like not weak, but it wasn't for me. That's what I felt. But then I spent the next day. I was like, you know what? I'll rewatch it. I really like Metroid Dread. I really liked the last thing they showed, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then I watched SMT's sort of like gameplay stuff, and like I don't know if I will end up trying it because I said the same about Nocturne, but it does look quite good, and like I can tell that like you guys are gonna absolutely love it. So I'm like really excited to hear about what you say about it, but I'm personally not there yet. We'll see like closer to the time. But yeah, just to dampen your mood, just to put another spin on it.
And it's kind of a weird thing because I think a lot of people going into this, like, one, it'll be their first like mainline Shin Megami Tensei game, and two, like probably a good chunk of its audience they've only played Persona 5, and then they're like, oh, okay, well we'll go give this a shot since it's a new game from those developers. So and it's really striking, you know, when you think about the difference between like the Western trailers and the Japanese trailer. Like for the Western trailers, how they introduced this game, it's still really good, but it was a lot like they had to explain what that game is. The turn-based RPG, it is the legacy of the series. It's been around for a while, so they had to like give like exposition to what this was. While the Japanese trailer, it's like, check this fucking shit out, and I was like, all right. You know,
yeah. I mean, both trailers are good. It's not like the Western trailer like was trying to pull your wool over your eyes. It just had to go a little bit more into like the cinematics, where the Japanese trailer kind of like assumed a little bit more that you had that knowledge, and it was like go a little bit more into gameplay. At least that's my taking of it, having watched them both. But go ahead.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, I didn't know what I was expecting with this unveiling of the Shin Megami Tensei 5 proper after the leaks and whatnot. Like, I think Adam and I kind of just like held the same belief, like, hopefully it's not a bad trailer. It's not embarrassing because we're really looking forward to this. And they just, I don't know what expectations I had, but it really blew them out of the park when they unveiled. It's like this is so striking with everything it does, like just beyond like the main character's design and like when he fuses with the Nahobino, this like forbidden being and whatnot, and that form is really cool. He kind of has like the cosmos energy sword as his main weapon, and just like seeing a little like dissecting the trailer like bit by bit, like you have like this a Magatsuhi bar, and like if you played Nocturne, you know what Magatsuhi is, so that really speaks to you. Then you see like the stat screen, and like the UI is very, and the UI is very much like Tokyo Mirage Sessions, but like I get why people are kind of iffy on it because they don't know if it's gonna really fit with the tone of the game and the atmosphere of the game, because the Shin Megami Tensei 4 and 4 Apocalypse really did that well when you had like these little comm devices, and then like your UI was kind of like Dead Space style, like holograms, and it really fit with that game. On this one, it feels more like, you know, your standard type of deal, but with the Tokyo Mirage Sessions flair over it. Well, I kind of get that, but when you see the stats screen and the status screen for like demons and the main characters game, it's very readable. Like at first glance, like all the important information is right there on the screen. There's like no guesswork about it, and I would rather take readability and ease of understanding over like something that like suits the mood of the game more if it has to sacrifice that end of it. If you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like I guess that's the thing that I'm kind of iffy on, but like I get it. But I think the thing that really, really excites me from this game when I see it is like when you're running around, dashing around, surfing around sometimes in that game world. And I'm not sure if it's open world or not, probably not, but what they showed off was like a wide open zone. But now that you actually see demon models on the field to engage in battle, like in 4 Apocalypse, you had like these shadowy figures, kind of like pixel figures that like you hit and you go into battle. This one, you just see like the models of the demons accurate to scale in the game world, and like how they integrate that into like the game's ecology. Like for example, like the daemons, like the kind of like the winged creatures, like the winged grunts. They occupy like dark caves, and they're like bats in that world. It's like, wow, you really thought about like kind of, instead of like animals, there's demons in this world, and that where do they fit on? Where do they fit in this world? What's their natural habitat? How will that affect like, you know, what you see in the game world? And that's really exciting, especially in that like that moment in the trailer where like a Seth, like a black dragon, flies overhead. It's like, is that thing just gonna fucking attack you and swoop you from midair? Like if it sees you, that's terrifying, and that's awesome, you know, if that's the case. So there's
also the Treehouse demo showed like I forget the demon's name, but the rock giant. Like he's like 50 levels higher than everyone else, but in like a starting zone. And that kind of reminds me of, you know, Xenoblade, or maybe Final Fantasy 12, you know, where it's just like you have like a mix of demons in the world, and you know, you can there's like on a numbers level, it's kind of like non-linear difficulty where you're going to have these really tough, maybe even impossible demons early on, but you can kind of see, you know, how far above your weight can you punch, sort of thing, in terms of trying to take on these like dangerous enemies that are just roaming around, like maybe Seth flying around. You can just take them on. I think that's really cool. Also, it kind of reminds me of like the Vortex world in Nocturne, but obviously being like 20 years later or whatever, 18 years later, there's much higher fidelity there. You can explore the whole world rather than just like being like a Monopoly board piece on the map. So it seems to have like that same sort of like barren isolation sort of feeling in the world, except as Nocturne did, only like in the modern, what you can do in like a modern game. So it's really cool to see.
And it still has like that, like, yeah, but it carries like that Nocturne spirit of like negotiations. Like when you go talk to a demon, it's like you can still get screwed over pretty hard if you when it comes to that. Like taking off your HP, your money, and whatnot. And then when you're talking about like the Monopoly piece in the overworld map, that's just it's like you're always fully modeled when you're traveling around. Like it's so funny to like see where we've come from Nocturne to this game. You see like there's just the hair physics wilding out, you know. It's cool.
I'm curious how like other characters are going to be incorporated into the game, because different SMT games have done it differently. For example, in Nocturne, there are like a handful of other characters that you sort of just run into here and there, kind of not very often, and they basically end up being tied to the game's endings. You know, like which character you're going to kind of link up with or join with or whatever. But they're not very present. They only pop up here and there. In Shin Megami Tensei 4, the sort of the law, neutral, and chaos ciphers are much more present. You know, they're sort of like party members. They're not really party members, but sorta that you kind of know very well at the beginning of the game. And then you have like 4 Apocalypse, which is pretty much just like a JRPG party, right? Eventually.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious. Like, we haven't really seen much of that in Nocturne yet, in terms of like you have your main character, and in the gameplay, it doesn't seem like there's really been any other like human around. So, but I'm curious how that's going to how that'll take shape.
Yeah, there's still so many questions, because like how did this come to be as another Apocalypse scenario? Because just normally the main character is like he's part of a school. He's just going to school. You see other people around, but how this manifests in game, like how do you get to point A to point B? So it's still wrapped up in mystery, and I'm still holding out for, like, when we were talking about Nocturne a few weeks ago, like we didn't see like any like dialogue portraits in this game.
Yep.
Yeah, it was still all in-engine like cutscenes, and then like they've been releasing these daily demon videos showing off like the roster of demons in this game, and like there's some of those, like there's some dynamic cutscenes in this game, like the one released today was for Fion Macumhale, and like it had that demon facing off against the MC, like their swords are interlocking, like in a cutscene. It's like, oh, like are they like much more involved in cutscenes this time around? So it's really, I'm really excited. I hope it does super good. I have like the collector's edition from Japan already pre-ordered, and I'm like, do I really want this? I don't know. That's a cool T-shirt though, but I don't know. I try not to think about it every day, and I keep thinking about it every day. So
this might end up being one of the biggest games of like the fall.
Yeah, November 12th. I forget if we said that. Did we say that at the top? But anyways, it's releasing on November 12th worldwide.
Yep.
Switch only.
Yep.
Switch only. It's like 5 or 6 days before Endwalker. So good luck to the people who want to play this game in Endwalker.
Yeah, like I'm trying to think, like what big games are coming out around that time. There's Endwalker for the MMOs.
Dying Light 2.
There's the Pokemon remakes, but that feels like not like a Diamond and Pearl are obviously mainline games and popular games, but it's like the remakes second time around. It seems like people are a little bit mixed on the art style.
Yeah, it's less so much about the art style, but that's a whole nother conversation. Basically, the gist of it is that after all the other remakes were like, even if they had some faults here and there, the remakes were obviously trying to bring these games in line with the more modern experiences and like add additional features and make them like feel fresh and new. Whereas everything we've seen from the Generation 4 remakes is like, oh, well, graphically they're different, but we actually really wanted them to feel like the traditional experience. We wanted them to feel in line with the original games, and a lot of people that were waiting for a reinvention of Generation 4 after the same thing happened with Gen 1, 2, and 3. Well, when you have it happen so many times in a row, you get expectations, and now that the remake is like, oh, well, there's Legends Arceus, but if we wanted like an actual remake, like the first 3 generations for Generation 4, we're not getting that.
But in any case, it seems like SMT5 might be one of the bigger RPGs of the fall. Because so many games are coming out next year.
Have you seen the fusion animation of that game? It is fucking wild. God damn. So basically, the fusion animation in SMT5 is you no longer have Mido, the guy, like the priest guy with sunglasses.
What happened to Mido?
I know. As like your fusion person, like you have a new character named Sophia, and she doesn't really. She's like kind of facilitating. She doesn't actually do the fusion herself. What basically happens is your main character plays like an organ to facilitate the fusion. So he's just rocking out on the organ.
Yeah, like just sort of like imagine like a stereotypical like guy kind of like jamming out on an organ,
like Ganondorf
with his hair
in
flowing.
Ocarina of Time. I don't know.
But like way more animated than like
Yeah.
he's like completely jamming out on the organ with his hair flowing every which way, and then while that's happening, like the demons are like turned into like this sort of magical gooey orby stuff and fused together.
Yeah,
So it's
like sort of like
wild.
black goo mush that's like like fusing into the tune of the organ. It's like, what the fuck is happening? Who is this person? Like, there's so many questions about like the what the main character is capable of at this point. It's like at some point in the trailer too, like this main character just like I can't, like, I think it's like a Cosmos Super, almost like it goes like supersonic speed and like just like dashes and penetrates through the enemy. Like you can't even see him anymore. Just doing like a fucking 1,000 slashes. It's like, what the hell's going on? This is insane. I love it.
And then another thing that we were expecting from the Nintendo Direct that we did get at the very end was a new trailer for the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. So this was obviously announced. Yeah, like we still don't have a real title. It's still just tentatively known as The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild sequel or 2, though post-direct interviews and press has revealed that it will have an official title, but it's still to be determined. And with some talk about how they don't want to spoil the premise or something like that. So that's why they're not giving us the title yet. It's a bit weird, but we don't have a title yet.
Yeah, that was with an IGN interview.
Yeah. So the new trailer, it's interesting for a few reasons. Not all of them good necessarily. First of all, it has a new design for Link that I think looks really neat. He's got like longer, like unkempt hair, and part of the trailer shows that he gets like this mark, or there's like demonification almost of one of his arms. And then a lot of the game takes place in the sky. It opens up with like a very almost like Skyward Sword, which is getting a remake in the next month, or a remaster, like falling from the sky. And then it shows him like using his paraglider, his what they don't call it a paraglider in the game. What do they call it?
Glider. Yeah,
just a glider from like a Sky Islands almost. And it's just like the trailer shows a little bit of everything. It's quite remarkable. There's a lot of stuff you can like dig into in terms of like what the locations look like, some of the abilities that Link has now. It shows Zelda very early on falling into a pit, which might throw a wrench into people hoping for a playable Zelda, but it doesn't rule it out necessarily.
Yeah, I saw that part and I'm just like, well, there goes the playable Zelda dream. Yeah. Obviously anything can happen.
Yeah.
But like,
well, just a theory craft here, just because I've been seeing it like non-stop. Like there's so many theories like that it's something to do with time travel, it's to do with like two different Links, so it's not Link and it's Ganondorf. My theory is, and I won't go too deep into it, I think that is okay, if we're saying that the sky person isn't Ganondorf, even though it has a very similar outfit, say that's Link, which again I love the design for, like Brian said, I think that it's Zelda on the bottom. Like, and people have said they're like, oh, that's clearly not Zelda in the trailer. I'm like, yeah, but like Joel was in the Last of Us Part 2 like trailers. It would like they can mess around that.
I want to know what websites
good.
George is reading, because I just assumed that was Link, and now I'm hearing like speculation that it's Ganondorf or time travel. Like, wait, what about
it? It's really
George,
interesting. It's so interesting.
I think for your own good, you shouldn't get into this.
Or whatever you're having, share some.
I love it. Like the thing is with this game, it's not Marvel's Avengers. Like I know without a shadow of a doubt, I think this will be like fantastic. Which sounds like stupid, like maybe it's bad, but I really doubt this will be bad. So like it can't. My expectations will be in check no matter what. But like all these theories and stuff, I used to do this for Kingdom Hearts 3 all the time. Like it just makes it so exciting. It keeps like the long wait, it makes it shorter, because in your head you're making like your little guesses, like, oh, maybe that's right, maybe that's wrong, and like I love doing that for games, and for this especially, there's a lot there.
Well, now I'm looking at the trailer and like, George, I hate you, but like they never show the front.
It's so cool though, isn't it?
They never show the face of long unkempt hair Link, only with the tied back hair Link. And so now I'm wondering, like, why don't they show his face? Maybe it's just because the camera just
dehydrated Ganon as well. It's like the same like sash. It's the same sash on the same side of the body.
I'm getting way too deep into
mural
this.
in Breath of the Wild. Exactly, like it fits. It's like it's not too much of a stretch. The only thing is, people say like Ganondorf's he's a different race. What is he? He's a Gerudian. So
Gerudo,
like
yeah.
maybe that doesn't make. Yeah, but like Breath of the Wild isn't like every other Zelda. Maybe it's like, maybe it's a twist. And it's just that's what I mean. As soon as you start thinking about it, it's like mind blown.
My guess is that since his arm is obviously corrupted with something, maybe his face or one of his eyes is also, and they just they want to save that reveal for later on, and that's why they didn't show his face.
That matches concept art as well. That has the power.
I have seen time travel speculation that like Zelda actually dies, and it's like you have to save her with time travel, I guess.
Oh, wow.
But I don't know if there's a whole lot to it.
But yeah, mark my words. I'm not a betting man, but I would. Okay, I guess I am a betting man then. I would bet that Zelda is playable, and I really do think that's
okay. What are you going to bet on it? What's the bet?
I bet.
If he's wrong, he has
Tensei 5.
No. That'd be too easy.
That's not punishment either, really. But...
If he's wrong, he has to review an Idea Factory game.
No. Fine. Okay. Fine. I accept.
If you're wrong, we're just gonna take whoever's interested in that Nin Taizen game, and you get to review it.
Fine. Deal.
Okay. All the listeners have heard this.
I am so sorry, Nathan. I am so sorry.
My pride's on the line, but I would, I'm certain.
Well, there you go.
By the way, go ahead, actually.
Go for it. Oh, I said if things not speculation, my man literally fucking turned into liquid and went up through a tower and popped out of the floor of like a plateau. I'm like, what?
Like an inkling.
Link, what the hell did you do? Are you okay?
I was just gonna say the end of this trailer just marks with the year 2022. So next year, that's it. Like. And I would not be at all surprised if this becomes that fake year 2023 at some point. But yes, so
I did think it was interesting how they said like they're aiming for.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know about aiming there. It's just
2023.
It's 2023 in my mind. It's gonna release alongside Eiyuden.
Splatoon 3 is a big game next year, in my opinion, and then this will be 2023's. Just to be cynical.
The very last announcement that came out of Nintendo Direct was one that was only in the Japanese side of the show. This is something that Josh is going to be interested in, along with other site contributor Kite Steinbuck, and that is the announcement of Super Robot Wars 30 with a release this year, including an English release for the Southeast Asian market, which I think is typical for this series. That's happened before.
Yeah.
But this did not show up on the Western facing showing at all, but it did show up on the let's see. Where did the English Southeast trailer show up? Southeast Asian trailer show up?
Just the Bandai Namco's Southeast Asia YouTube.
Oh, I was about to say, like, Nintendo doesn't have a Southeast Asia specifically focused trailer, but Bandai Namco does. So it will have an English release that you'll have to import from that region. But yeah, Super Robot Wars 30. What does 30 mean? 30th year? I don't know.
30th anniversary.
All right. So what do you see in this trailer?
It has way more games than 30. By the way, it's not just the 30th Super Bowl. There's way more Super Bowl Wars than that. Yeah, this is really exciting. They're probably going to go show more of it at the anniversary event that they're holding next month. I believe it's going to be live streamed. Kite did a really great job on the news post on breaking it down on the series that are participating in this. It's not the full list. Obviously, there's still going to be more to be unveiled at the live stream event next month. But in the trailer that was shown, some of the shows represented was the Super Electromagnetic Robo Combattler 5 or V. I forgot. I don't watch Combattler. Mazinger Z, a staple of the series. So Mazinger Z Infinity is going to be here. Zeta Gundam, the Gundam Char's Counterattack. These are long-standing series that have been in there. You have the King of Braves Gal Gaigar Final in there. And then probably the newcomer in this one. There have been Code Geass series in there before, but this is going to be the first time that the new sequel film, Lelouch the Resurrection, is going to be in here, and that was confirmed because there's a teaser at the very end where that was weird. Where he showed off a Code Geass character, Suzaku, in like the Lancelot Sin, which is the mech that he pilots for that film. So it's your typical awesome Super Robot Wars affair shown off. They haven't really said much about like what it's about, or what other robot series are going to be represented in it. I'm very excited. I'm really glad. I think the small bummer for me in this is I still hope and pray and wish that they show a new Super Robot Wars original generation game at that live stream event, because it's there's the previous one teased of more things to come. A sequel would be nice, but I know it takes a few years for that to come out because they really put forth their best foot on those releases. So it's really cool to see more of this. I'm excited.
So following the Nintendo Direct, we had a few things in like post E3, post Summer Game Fest world. Obviously, like the Steam Next Fest, which is kind of like the new rendition of the Summer Games Festival, is going on, I believe, right now, literally. And that's another thing that's kind of been a lot of that has been pushed by like Jeff Keighley and the producers behind the Game Awards and the Summer Games Fest. And as part of that, there's like something like 700 demos available to play, and one of those had caught Josh's eye that he had played and put up a feature for Wolfstride. So I guess now is the best chance for you to get to talk about what you experienced with that demo there.
Yeah, it's a really brief demo, but it's really such a cool concept. The basic lowdown of Wolfstride is it's a game entirely presented in grayscale. Its main focus is like these 1 versus 1 like giant robot brawls, but it's like a turn-based style RPG where the actual life bars is in each part of the body. So you have like 4 life bars to manage, 1 for the head, 2 for each arm. So it's like 1 for the left arm, 1 for the right arm, and 1 for the chest. And like the main goal of these fights is to take out the enemy opponent's like chest area, because that's where it stores their core. If you take that part out, you win the battle. But obviously it's a much more complex than that, because each of the like you could choose to like limit their options, right? By like disabling their arms, or if you disable their head, they can no longer like choose what body part they target on you, and vice versa. And it has a lot of really neat gimmicks. Like for the first fight you have in that demo, there's like the enemy robot, like his right arm like charges up for this god punch, and it takes a while to it takes like a turn to charge up, and then when he unleashes it does a lot of damage. But you also have like a defense on your end, like you can have like this part on you where you use it in battle, and then like it'll taunt like your right arm, so like your right arm will like brace itself and has like a taunt effect, so they have to target that. So it's a lot of cool exchanges like that. You have like this whole weaponry from like swords, like shotguns, and that can target multiple parts. And within battle, like as you're stepping closer and closer to each other, like movement is dictated by like these 7 squares spread across horizontally, and you actually have to like try to push each other to each other's corner, because if you push them all the way back to their corner, kind of like a wrestling match almost, like you get like this big damage buff because you're overwhelming them so much in battle and whatnot.
I remember when I was watching you play this demo, like it's a turn-based one-on-one game, and like you're mentioning, there's just like a lot of different resources and positioning to manage. Like you talked about, like there's like 7 different spots on the field you can kind of be in. You have like 4 different parts of your mech that each have their own health bar. You have like an AP, sort of like how many actions you can do in this turn sort of resource as well. And then there's like a different resource that fills, is like how can you can like repair yourself mid battle. So it seems like there's a lot of strategy in terms of like how you go about not only like actually executing the battle, but also like how you prepare for it, because you can also equip like different weapons and set up your mechs differently. So it seems like it was pretty dense.
Yeah, it's really cool, because they're really, like, especially during those battles, it's on grayscale. They're really trying to go for that manga aesthetic. And also like I remember talking about the movement in the battle and like the slots. Like I saw like one of the screenshots we had on the database was like there's like this trap, like bear trap icon on one like the slots. So it's like I guess there will be like different like tools you can use that can actually like manipulate the field, and have like a certain spot will be like a trap, and if someone goes on it, like I'm gonna assume bad things will happen, and then there are like actual weapons that like also knock the like enemies and you back, like a knockback punch. It'll knock them back 2 spaces and whatnot. So it's a lot of like strategy there. And then outside of battle, you like take control of, like this manager person, and then you have to like balance the funds that you earn in battle. And like I assume there'll be also side activities that like where you can raise cash. Where like, do I want to spend this money to like fix damaged parts that I took this previous battle, or do I also want to invest in like new parts to like raise like how many actions I can do per turn, or do I also want to invest in like new equipment and for my mech on like different weapons, different like defense types. So like the core concept is really sound, and I was pretty impressed with what I saw. So I kind of wrote a brief follow up on it, and we still don't have a release date on it, so who knows when it's gonna come out. I'm really looking forward to that final game. It has a lot of promise.
And a couple of the other games that are on.
So that's Wolfstride.
Yeah,
just to mention it.
I was looking at the other games that are on Steam's Next Fest. Chris Tales has another demo on there, and that's obviously releasing next month. Death Trash, we talked about, the Fallout like is on there. Yeast 9 has a PC demo on as part of the Next Fest. A bunch of other games there. It's like 700 in total. It's crazy. Part of me is like the idea of having timed demos is a bit weird in general, but I do kind of like having like an event to kind of like prop them up and platform them. It's kind of cool. I just feel like they should just be like demos, just be available starting now. Like, I don't know, like having the times to them is, there's always like, that's a marketing thing, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's fine, but I do think like the time span is way too short. It's like from June 16th to like the 22nd, and there's like 700 demos. So it's like, I'd say at least give it like a month-long event or something like that.
Yeah.
To at least give it time to breathe, because there's no way like a lot like people are gonna be like, oh shit, I have to, like, you know, I want to try out a lot of these games, but I only have so much time. A lot of time with like other obligations that I have outside of this too.
Yeah, so definitely check that out, and I'm really glad that you got the chance to try out Wolfstride and put up a big feature of that for us. A couple of things that are also in this post E3 world, just as little footnotes. RGG Studios' Judgment, of which the sequel has been recently announced and is coming later this year. Judgment has sold 1 million copies, so that's always a cool little benchmark. Even though it is kind of crazy to think like we're talking about Judgment's 1 million copies like later than Sakuna of Rice and Ruins. So I don't know. I always kind of felt like maybe Judgment had already sold that many, but I guess not. I'm not sure why that would be, but it's now at the 1 million mark.
It was an exclusive, you know.
Yeah, it was only for PS4.
Yeah, spin-off, and you could say like maybe they didn't really leverage, like it feels like only recently are they leveraging that this is the Yakuza spin-off or whatever, especially now that they've said like RGG Studios has clarified that this is basically going to be like the action branch of their titles going forward, or the brawler branch of their titles going forward, while Yakuza will be the turn-based RPG. So I'm guessing Judgment 2 will end up being overperformed compared to the original, which was felt like a spin-off at the time, where now more feels like more even-handed with the Yakuza series. Final Fantasy VII Remake has shown up on some of the back-end databases for the Epic Games Store. So this is a tweet that blew up earlier yesterday. I think not altogether surprising. Final Fantasy VII Remake was built on the Unreal Engine. We've seen, obviously, the Kingdom Hearts series had the exclusivity period with the Epic Games Store. So this is something I think maybe we weren't expecting, but we were kind of like anticipating might happen.
We even joked about this, like when it comes to PC, it's going to be on Epic. You know,
yeah, it turns out that's
didn't come out of nowhere.
Well, we don't know that it's true. This is just, it showed up on the back end, no official announcement, nothing from like the actual publisher here. But it's one of those things where it's like, I don't think anyone's really surprised. And considering how well made the Kingdom Hearts 3 PC port, as James reported, was, I think if you're looking for a Final Fantasy VII Remake PC port that ends up like going above and beyond, this is a good sign, because it just seems like Epic is definitely willing to shell out and support Square Enix in terms of making this a really nice showcase for their engine on PC. So
Yeah.
People have asked our Twitter
I mean-
account, like, will this include the Yuffie DLC? Will like, I mean, we don't know any details really. It showed up in the database.
It hasn't even officially been announced for PC
Right.
yet. Like, I mean, it's a pretty safe assumption it will come. And I'd say that it's an even safer assumption that when it does come, it will be on Epic Games. We just don't know about anything else. Like if it'll also be on Steam, if it'll be an EGS exclusive, what's going to be in the package.
Stadia and
so
Luna. Stadia and Luna. It's gonna come there, right?
I had to remind myself, like, what is Luna? What did Josh just say just now? Like,
What is
Luna.
Stadia?
I wonder if Baldur's Gate 3 is still going to push Stadia. It's a big launch platform for it. Yeah. But anyways, I saw some people speculating that obviously Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade just released a month ago, which, by the way, I'll use this to call out. Alex did a nice review for it, talking about the Yuffie Intergrade chapter mostly, but that just released. So maybe a 6-month exclusivity period means that a PC release could show up in December. Maybe. It's all speculation at this point. And I can't believe we're at the final thing listed on the document. Is that correct? Have we made it? We've made it.
Yep. We're just one more thing to get over the barrier.
All right. So
This is our shadow drop.
we got a tweet from the New Game Plus Expo, and this is another one of those summer focused parallel to E3 broadcasts headed up by Nice America.
Okay,
Which
is this who's claiming this? Is it Jeff Keighley or the ESA claiming this one?
I'm going to assume both. But a tweet just from yesterday, or was it yesterday, or was it the day before? 17th, 2 days
It was
ago.
yesterday.
Saying that Nihon Falcom will have a virtual concert celebrating their 40 years of video game development, along with messages and special announcements by Toshihiro Kondo, which a lot of people are speculating this could be related to potential localization announcements for the Trails series, either the Hajimari that we're looking forward to, or potentially some of the like Crossbell Kai. Like if people are like kind of running wild, like what this is a concert announcement here. It's a virtual concert, but people are wondering like what is going to accompany that? What announcement could be made alongside this concert? So as of right now,
the Theatra than Falcom. Let's go.
there we go. As of right now, there is no slated English release for the series for this year. But New Game Plus Expo is, as I learned this morning, I guess it's headed up by Nice America. I didn't know this. They're the ones that have been publishing Trails of Cold Steels 3 and 4 and the Switch versions of those. So I think I am not a betting person, and I'm not going to fall back on that like George just did. But Hajimari, obviously, which released last year in Japan, would be the easiest candidate to expect a localization announcement here, maybe, especially if this is a Western focused presentation.
I don't think it's Western focused because the time is like midnight.
Yeah, that's actually, I was actually thinking about that. Like, this is a presentation from Kondo, from Falcom themselves. This isn't like, they're not announcing this as an announcement from Nice America. So with that consideration, maybe we shouldn't expect an announcement here, but
it might just be like, it might be something along the lines that Falcom is doing a concert, which is of course Japanese focused, and then NIS America is just sort of like hitching their arm to it and like, hey, we're going to announce a Hajimari localization or whatever.
So anyway, I don't think I ever said this. This is on June 24th. This is the concert, June 24th, 10
There
p.m.
will be localization announcements. We just don't know what they will be.
Yeah, so basically
the possibilities are Hajimari, the Crossbell games, or maybe the least interesting announcement would just be like Switch ports for Cold Steel 1 and 2, because those are coming, but they haven't been announced in English yet.
So that'll be June 24th, June 25th in Japan.
Also Nayuta, that's a thing.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I'm actually interested in that one. If it's like a Zwei 3, as I hear it is. Or at least has some Zwei DNA.
So that we will know what the results of that are before next week's podcast, because we do plan on showing up next week for that.
We're still doing another podcast.
Yeah, I can't believe we took a week off. Now we have to come. Now we have to show up next week.
Shit.
All right, but all right, considering everything that we had to go through this week, being able to finish in under 4 hours, if you've made it to the end, I don't know, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. This is something where it's there's a lot of games that we had to cover very quickly. There's a lot of indie games that we could not even cover at all, like Astria Ascending. We barely talked about Death Trash. There's a few other indie games that showed up at the PC Gaming Show and the Future Games Show.
How dare we not talk about the rating for Castlevania Advanced Collection?
Oh yeah, there's an Australian classification boards rating for the Advanced Collection. So it's, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff, and it's all up on the website. Adam and so many other people have contributed. Our new contributors, Kite and Jess and Paige and a whole bunch of different names. Nathan have all shown up to help with all the news coverage. Even Alex has shown up to do some of the news. I've done
even Alex showed up.
Even I showed up. It has been quite a week. So I know we all went into E3 basically thinking like, what in the world is this going to be like? And it ended up being fine. Okay. It turned out okay. I know the Square Enix presentation, the Capcom presentation were all a bit weird. But it ended up being better than last year. I'll put it that way. On a low bar, but there you go. So thank you so much for listening. We've got all of those features that we've got so many interviews and features with the Fuga devs, with the impressions from the strangers of what is that Final Fantasy one
It's Stranger
Paradise.
Stranger
Paradise.
Paradise
Not in
was
Paradise.
Paradise was the word I was forgetting. What a weird word. But we got impressions on that. We've got the review for the Final Fantasy VII Yuffie content. We've got the Wolfstride impressions. We've got so much stuff on the website. Do check it out. All the news. We do have an entity for the E3 2021. So we'll attach that to this podcast, for the post for this podcast, and we'll have everything under there that was announced in the last week and a half. So thank you for listening. We will be back next week, seemingly, with our normal kind of schedule where we talk about what we've been playing. We'll try to highlight the big announcements of the week, along with all the little ones. We'll try to get impressions for maybe some of the Game Fest demos or some of the other things that are releasing in June that we'll be able to talk about in the next couple of weeks. So
it's also going to be definitely feels like it's going to be another big podcast next week. So
yeah, there's still a lot of fallout. So we're just trying to gather it up and at least get some of it covered, so that next week we can move on with a fresh slate. So visit us on the website at rpgsite.net. We've got everything listed on our Twitter account, twitter.com/RPG site. If you haven't been following us on instagram.com/RPG site, Alex has been doing a crazy job repackaging all of our big features up into Instagram friendly posts and putting that all together on that side. Also on our Facebook page. We do have we haven't put up anything recently, but we have a few new plans for our YouTube channel coming up. So do check out youtube.com/RPG site net. And join us on the Discord, discord.com/RPG site, to talk about any and everything on this front coming out of E3. So really exciting times, a lot of stuff to look forward to in the future months and even into next year and even into the fake year of 2023. So thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.